In my eye, that's the biggest thing keeping consoles alive still.
What is it going to take, you think, for Linux to overtake Windows?
Brad, if you had to pick a flavor of Linux to move to tomorrow, what would it be?
We end up paying for it on the end.
Hello, Galaxy. I'm Chris Perillo, and you've tuned in to a live recording of the Locker Room Digital Review. Man, TLDR for sure. In my head, having done this for years, I almost fell back onto the Locker Room Daily Report, which is what TLDR used to be way back in the day. Kind of rebooting the idea in the spirit of Tech TV, full of geeky camaraderie, so that it's not just me in front of a camera babbling about one topic or another that you may be interested in, but I'm joined by a few other individuals, and they may vary from week to week. We generally record this by way of StreamYard, which is a sponsor for the live streams on Twitch 24/7 on my channel, Chris Perillo, as well as on MakerDeck, a 24/7 feed of 3D printers. I'll be talking about that a little bit. Did you hear that? Did you hear my voice?
I did hear that.
You okay, buddy?
Dude, I don't know. I think I channeled Peter Brady there for a second.
I think
wow.
Just hit right then.
Because it's time.
On my headphones.
Isn't that?
Yeah, congratulations on the puberty.
Thank you. My other testicle is going to descend at some point during this broadcast. That's the
Just wait for it.
Exactly. We don't know when it's going to happen. So if you've got a pool going on in the comments, like, well, I have it at an hour. I have it at, an hour and 20 minutes. Like, maybe you'll win something. And then you won't win anything. But I will let you know as soon as it does descend. And it should be any minute now. I wanted to do something like this, if only because it's fun to do. We stream on Twitch 24/7, hanging out with an array of people playing video games, people streaming 3D prints, people doing a whole bunch of things. And every so often we'll throw our faces on there as well. I haven't been as interactive, apart from in chat on Twitch, at least having the mic turned on, because quite honestly, I've been going through some rather tumultuous times on my end. I'm not going to get into it right now because it's incredibly personal, but I will eventually talk about it. So not in this video, or in this podcast. The only thing you can look forward to is my testicle descending. I'm not going to get into other personal.
Which isn't personal at all.
It isn't. It really, my testicles have been online for years. And, it's something that, you didn't realize, when you were growing up that was something that could happen because the internet didn't exist, back in the day. I am so happy to have everyone here tonight. We've got Will the Gamer, we've got Mike, we've got Glendon, a cast of characters who are just as geeky as I am, if not more so, specifically about other topics, though. And that's the beautiful thing about technology is there's so many aspects of technology. I'm not interested in all of them, but that doesn't mean that I can't learn a thing or two from the other people who might be sharing their perspectives. So that's the hope in bringing people together. We can teach, educate, entertain, have the banter. This is, again, like in the spirit of Tech TV, the camaraderie, I feel, is what made the content work. Yes, we understood the topic. We wanted to talk about it. We wanted to share what we learned. But at a deeper level, it was just more connecting with the people who were on screen. So that is why we are doing what we do. So expect to be informed, empowered, entertained, and maybe something else. I don't know what's going to happen. This is not a good beer, so I can't make any huge promises. It was an okay beer. Honestly,
It's okay beer.
Not my thing.
4 out of 10.
Yeah, in that range. I'm probably gonna take the other one and put it in beans. So I make I've got a Darth Vader Instant Pot, and if you didn't know, Star Wars branded Instant Pots exist, and every week or week and a half, depending on how long it takes to get through them, I'll just put in beans, pinto beans, and 2 bags full, and then cook them. And then I have those for lunch, indefinitely. So that's what I've been eating for lunch for 2-3 years now. Pretty routine. There are exceptions. Whopper Wednesday. Burger King does not pay me, nor does Instant Pot, but you can get a $3 Impossible Whopper, great for vegans like me, as well as a regular Whopper for $3 on Wednesdays here in the U.S. And so I look. Wednesday is my favorite day because of that. I know everyone looks forward to Friday, but it's Wednesday for me because they don't do $3 Whopper Fridays. That's not a thing. But $3 Whopper Wednesdays is something that, if you didn't know, now you may have just saved money on your next fast food meal on Wednesday. You may not have known about that, but it's kind of a hidden secret. Not a lot of people know that.
Thank you, Chris.
I always forget about it.
How could you? Even Glendon, even on Wednesdays in chat, when I'm popping in, I will say it's Whopper. I will even say it's Whopper Wednesday. I will. Okay. I promise you this. Not every week, Glendon, because I can't. I'm not going to be on the hook. But I will make a concerted effort this week to say, hey, it's Wednesday. It's $3 Whopper, and that's a big deal, especially.
And that goes for the Impossible Whopper too, right?
Yeah, that's the thing is that you can try it if you've never had it. Some meat eaters, don't like the texture, flavor, whatever. But I really don't have that much of a choice. I mean, I do in the sense that I don't have to get that food, but you only live once. So and that's I tell you what, you want to talk about where technology is really taking hold, specifically what they're doing, and it is manufactured, right? It is man-made, quote unquote, meat or meat product. But I would argue that the people who say, whoa, what are you eating? That's pig sludge, that's not real food. I'm like, the garbage that y'all eat, flagging me for trying an impossible or having, let's say, impossible or beyond, quote unquote.
Yes.
Like, it's like, I'm fairly confident that the garbage you shovel into your mouth is probably not like grade A organic, 100% pure, just vegetables and fruits. I'm not saying pick your poison, but at some point, you gotta have something to look forward to, right?
Well, don't knock it till you try it, right?
Well, and that's the thing. But I would argue that, quote unquote, real meat, however that's to be determined, I don't really want to get into that aspect of things.
Right.
But it's probably full of just as many bad things for your body. And I don't just mean the meat itself, which could be argued has there are properties that could increase, let's say, a male's risk for colorectal cancer. But like whether it's hormones or whatever else comes with the meat, yada yada, how it was made, where it came from, etc. Right. So you could say, well, the Impossible Whopper just the Impossible meat is not pure, right? It's not real. It's all manufactured. It's all chemicals. It's all this. I'm like, dude, don't tell me. I understand that. See, that's the thing. I understand that it doesn't come from the sky. It doesn't come from the ground. I totally get that. But, I'm not saying don't yuck someone's yum. It's just don't try to judge me on that choice that I'm making because it doesn't have an animal product. When you're sitting there maybe eating an animal product with no problem, but it's filled with all sorts of garbage. Again, I'll go a step further, right? I eat cereal on Saturdays. The one I had this weekend was a Disney 100. I got it at the Dollar Tree for $1.25. It kind of sucks that they're still called the Dollar Tree. This should be the $1.25 tree.
Right.
I dollar and something tree.
Yeah, it's bizarre. Inflation. And got it. And it was actually the ingredients list was, I'm not going to say normal, but there weren't like any additives or like dyes that you would expect. It was a good flavor. Yeah. I mean, yes, it has preservatives. It is a manufactured food product. But in terms of like the listing of the product or in the ingredients list, I was actually kind of shocked that it was good. It wasn't that bad. So I do understand that we have a lot of food choices out there and you don't have to choose every one of them. But this is where I'll come back to where technology should be making our lives easier. And I'm not making the leap from talking about Impossible or Beyond or any faux meats are the better option because it may not be for you. I mean, there's some people who need something else. Like, let's say females have had issue going vegan and needing to introduce other ways of getting what their nutrients, including like fish from fish. That has been shown a few times over. So everybody's body's different. So I'm not judging and saying that the food choice that I have is the same way that yours should be. But technology could very well and should very well be making our lives better in terms of what we might be ingesting on a daily basis. Because whether we're talking about like the treatment of water, whether we're talking about the food products and optimizing it, not necessarily just for flavor, but specifically for the nutritional value. And again, I'm not making that leap and saying that it's more nutritional than something that you might be eating, but shouldn't that be where we would want technology to be, like, I guess, really, really working for us instead of the food companies churn out these food products that taste great, no doubt about that, but our body doesn't necessarily care what something tastes like apart from, it's past your palate. I don't know if we're ever going to get to that point because of the illusion of choice that we might have with the food products that we buy, at least in today's array of options at supermarkets. But that's where I would really love to see technology be applied. Let's look at the flavor, obviously, because of our taste buds, but let's go deeper and optimize what it is that we're eating such that our body can respond well to it and give us the nutrition that we need so that we're not just filling ourselves with junk, right? And just empty calories, so to speak, so that the technology is effectively optimized for our health. And I don't know if that's how the industry works. And it's a food industry. I gotta be honest, it's kind of maddening. They've optimized with technology, like let's say I wasn't even planning on going on this topic, but it's true, right? They've
good topic.
optimize the what do they call it? The line, where the assembly line or whatever, where
Oh, okay. Yeah.
they've optimized and used technology there. But I'm specifically talking about the composition of the things that we're eating or drinking. And that, unfortunately, health is a distant, almost byproduct of the byproduct. And that is, I feel, detrimental to us as a society because we end up with health problems. Because, you walk into a store and like fruits and vegetables or this very easy to use processed, pre-made, whatever, it tastes good, right? And so you go with the thing that tastes good. Fruits and vegetables can taste good too. And trust me, I'm not saying that's all I eat. So that's where I would love to see technology go. And I don't know what it's going to take to get there because unfortunately, health may sell, but it's usually health in line with a processed food that comes with it, something that's quote unquote healthy based on quote unquote science or quote unquote research that might have been funded by the company that made the product. If I was ever to be excited about anything, I would love to see that happen. I don't know what it's going to take. You'd think,
I think
being healthy, sorry, Mike, I'll finish this thought and I'll pass the baton. I don't think people being unhealthy is the thing that's going to take because clearly, like that has been a problem, across the world because we have outsourced our health to companies that are selling us food, which tastes great, but unfortunately our bodies can't process it the same way. When I see the slagging of Impossible and Beyond and these faux meats, I take it in context with all the other garbage that everybody else might eat as well. So, okay, Mike, I'm not even on a soapbox. It's just, why didn't I get on that?
Get off the soapbox.
Okay.
No. I was just going to add to that I think you're onto something. And in 100 years from now, they're going to look back on history and say, these guys were getting their nutrients from cows. That's so primitive. Yeah, it might be that way. I really don't know. And I think you're onto something I think there's a lot of scientific answers to happen. Yeah, I just agree with you there.
Right now, it's like, it's a replacement. It's not, I couldn't argue that it's a quote unquote better replacement because, there hasn't been enough time, the research is the data has not, we haven't been living with it for, let's say 30 years or what have you. It's knowing that the industry does not operate with health in mind. They operate with profit. They operate, around flavor and taste, like snack foods, very salty. So, you keep eating, you're not satiated. So you just keep eating more and more and more and more and more. And so that is probably, and this is not a conspiracy. Like it's not a conspiracy. It's like, this is the reality that we are dealing with. And it's one of the reasons why, I drew certain lines with my personal choices years ago. There are certain foodstuffs that I would avoid. This is pre-vegan. Like I don't, hydrogenated oil. I avoid artificial sweeteners unless I can't avoid it. There are certain like medicines that, it's got like sucralose or, aspartame. I generally won't have that stuff, but if it's in a medicine, I'm like, what am I going to do? Like I need a Dayquil. I have to take it, right? I'm not going to pay $84 for a homeopathic or homeopathetic, just you stick it in your nose for an hour and you'll be healed of everything. I'm like, so yeah, there's certain things that you kind of have to take a principled stand on if that's a choice for you. My wish is that we did not have to make the choice and technology allowed the companies that are selling products to sell a product, maybe profitable for them, right? Go capitalism, but also a product that's not killing us at the same time. And I don't think that's too much to ask. I really don't. Is that too much to ask?
Not at all.
Use science to make better food? I think it's pretty easy. Yeah.
I will step off my soapbox now. That was not the thing I was planning on talking about at all. But we all eat, and you know what? You know what else we all do? We all, except for that one person, we won't talk about them. We all. What else do we do? We all do this. What is one? What is? I'm going to give y'all can try to answer this question the way that I'd love you to answer this question. What is one thing that we all do?
Whopper Winston.
No, that is not the answer. We shave. And men or women, we both we shave different parts of our body, some more than others. I don't know how that, I think this was a Facebook ad that popped up. I couldn't believe it. Apparently now Panasonic has a Stormtrooper. I'm kind of disappointed that it wasn't like the Stormtrooper number wasn't like THX 1138 or something Star Wars reference,
right?
Which would be fun. This is a Best Buy exclusive, and it is a legit. And I love the Panasonic shavers. I have not used anything but an electric razor, specifically one that has the flat side. I don't like the way that Norelco has the 3 circular blades, but I've used a variety of brands over the years, Panasonic, Braun, a few others. I've liked the Panasonic. I actually leapt from a Panasonic to this Panasonic, but it's got, pop-up trimmer, for sideburns, washable for easy maintenance, so you can rinse it underneath when you're done. 1 hour full charge, which would be plenty, unless your beard is very, very long. 3-minute quick charge for one shave, up to 45 minutes on a cordless usage. Travel lock switch, automatic universal voltage, and a lithium-ion battery. I don't know why they're bragging about a lithium-ion battery. I don't know if anybody uses, what is it, nickel cat? What was it? Nickel cadmium? NiCads? Yeah.
Nickel cadmium.
So, it shaves well.
That's surprising. Because
does.
Stormtroopers can't hit anything.
They can't.
Exactly where I was going to go.
Worked so well. I'm clean shaven. It feels like it's a little smaller than the one that I have now as a backup, but it is ample. It works, well enough, and it's just kind of fun to shave with a Stormtrooper. The previous one I got, I think I also got from Best Buy, but I got it for like $50. This was not $50 because the Star Wars tax, which I was more than willing to pay. Just like, all right, I have to.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is pretty neat. I don't know how long it's going to be available, but it is available now, and it provides a very close shave. This is one of the reasons why I use electric razors, or have used them for a number of years. I don't think I could ever go back. I think I maybe used shaving cream once or twice in the past couple of decades, and that's because I was in a pinch, in a bind, I needed to get something done. But for the most part, it has been these, and I've swapped over the years, especially when one is will eventually die. I'll keep this inevitably in my collection. When an electronic's done, I'm done. I'm not going to hold on to it. I'm not even. No, it's done. I've got a nice backup now because I'm moving from a previous Panasonic to the new Panasonic. They did not send this to me. I paid good money for it, but it's got this nice collectible box, and it works well, and I'm happy.
Panasonic makes good stuff. They've always made good stuff.
As far as the shavers go, there's a reason why, like I said, Norelco they had a Star Wars branded thing around, I want to say, if it wasn't Norelco, it may have been Gillette, had something around Rogue One, but those are the more traditional razors that you would use with shaving cream. If it was a brand that I did not like or did not want to use, I wouldn't have bought it. So I have, I would say, extensive enough experience with the Panasonic shaver line. I mean, there are plenty of things that are Star Wars branded that I do not buy. Like, I'm not going to, they're Star Wars popcorn poppers, and they're trash. I'm like, maybe if it was on sale, but I'm not going to use it. But certainly something that I would want to use and talk about it, even having the experience with the Panasonic shavers, I've been pretty happy with. This is the thing I was planning on talking about rather than food technology initially. I don't know if y'all are as picky with how you shave or what you use.
I like Panasonic.
I don't use an electric shaver.
Okay.
To me, it's just always been irritating on my skin compared to a straight razor with shaving cream. So
it's too messy for me, honestly.
Yeah.
The shaving cream, I could never, it drove me nuts. It was just so foamy. And I could never get as clean a shave as I could with a really good electric razor. And I when I shave, and it takes me a while because I'll go over a spot, and this is clean. I mean, you got to make sure your blades are sharp, right? Otherwise you end up getting razor burn. But I'll go over a spot a few times until it's like, I don't feel stubble. I just want it to be smooth. And I never found a smoother shave and a cleaner one than through the electronic shavers. And like I said, I've used several brands over the years to the point where I know I've lost track of which ones I use, which ones I like more or less. But it's always been the straight blades, right? Rather than the circles. This has always been the big win. And the thing that I like the most out of, and this is, you probably get the same thing with what you use, Glendon, but like the sideburn trimmer, that trimmer helps a lot. Well, because you can just go, shave there and then, because that's how you do it. But I know you've got a beard, so it's going to be a little different for you compared to the way that I do shaving every week or so.
Yeah, I just use a trimmer for mine. I don't even really do any manual shaving any longer. Just whenever it gets unwieldy, I'll take the trimmer to it.
I think they call it manscaping. Although, is manscaping the other parts of your body? I don't know.
I think it's all
It is.
together.
Okay.
It's all one thing.
Yeah, because I don't have to shave my chest because it's I've only 4 hairs. You can't.
Thanks for that visual reference. I'll never get rid of that. No, thank you.
There they are. I was feeling for the hairs. They're there. I've got like 3 or 4 of them, so I don't have to worry about that. I manscaped. It's a very white. I white balanced everything right there.
You really did.
I just white balanced.
Wow.
Blinding.
Fantastic.
Blinded. Some people get blinded with science. I blind everybody with my lack of chest hair. So that's the thing. I mean, I don't. There's no discussion point to bring up around that, but this is one of the things that I picked up this week. But at least I've been using it for the past week that I wanted to talk about. Glenn, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I was just gonna say there's 17 reviews on this thing, and it's all 5-star stuff.
Well, because it's Star Wars, so you're gonna get.
Oh, okay. That's.
I
don't know. I've had the same Panasonic shaver since I could shave, which I'm 27 now, and I started shaving when I was 15. So it's like, yeah, I've had for a long time. Runs on AA battery, the small one. Yeah.
Wow, that's impressive. Most impressive. Glenda, what do you got for this week? Do you have anything?
I do actually. Let me get it for you because it's visual. I've got the box. The other part of it is actually hooked up to the television, but let me grab the box for you real quick. Talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll be able to start the segment when you come back, and then we'll pop to Mike because he may be time limited. Toxic's backstage, but he may still be wrestling with his camera there. It seems, which is I don't know why. Technology. Can't live with it. Can't live without it. It's in between.
He said in the StreamYard chat that he appreciated the nip slips.
Oh, no problem.
That.
That's what I did.
Yeah.
It wasn't a slip. It was an intentional nip broadcast.
And he's saying something about it working. So
Didn't it? Okay. I don't know.
Oh yeah, he says he's working. Just jump him in.
Well, it's working. He's not. I'll add him to stage. There he is. Okay.
What's
Oh.
He said he didn't want to interrupt the flow of things. How nice of a guy is that?
Okay, hang on. So Toxic was having an issue getting everything connected with StreamYard, and now it seems that he's got everything working. So what was it? How did you troubleshoot it? What happened? And how did you get it resolved? Because clearly you're here.
The only thing that I did was did another reboot, of course. This time I did not open OBS first. I think that might have been an issue potentially, but it didn't reopen any of the previous tabs that I had opened through the history. I don't know. I just opened the stream link and it started firing up. So I don't know.
Interesting.
I had the issue for about 2 days.
OBS. Oh, that's okay. So that's why I hadn't seen you over on the Twitch stream. OBS just released, or they just dropped version 30. Is that right? Yeah, 30 just dropped cross-platform. Nothing really. I don't think there were any like game changers in there. Surprisingly, nothing apart from iterative changes. But have you uploaded? Have you updated to the latest version of OBS Toxic?
I have not.
Okay, maybe worth trying.
The only thing that broke, before this, it was a Windows update and I think a Chrome update as well, all bundled into that. So something changed, and I reloaded, and Chrome would work. I would get in backstage, it would load for a second, and then I would get the error saying that it ran out of memory. But I have 128 gigs of RAM, and I was using not even 10% of that. So I don't know what was causing it. I tried not Internet Explorer Edge, and that would crash immediately. No idea what was going on.
Do you think it's that 23H2 update from Windows? Is that what the update you're referring to is?
No idea. I mean, I'm still on 10, but probably.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You're still on 10?
Yeah, I'm not doing 11.
Wait, okay, so hang on. Now, this is just taking a left turn. Why have you, I mean, I'm not castigating you for not updating to 11, but why? Why are you still on 10? Why do you not want 11?
I will ride 10 until it is end of life, and I will not potentially go to 11. I might have a couple virtual machines with it. I don't like the amount of telemetry that's built into it, the call home and the integration with the cloud services. It's too interconnected. I just don't personally like that. So
you have to.
I might be going to Linux.
Don't you have to have a Microsoft account just to sign in to install it?
No.
11?
No.
Oh, you don't. Okay, you used to. So.
But there's a lot of just integrated functionality of the operating system that's tied to the cloud, whether it be for whatever Microsoft does with it. I don't know, but
that's going to go. It's going to go deeper and deeper and deeper. Mm-hmm. So you're thinking of making a leap outright from Windows to Linux. But what do you use obviously you use it to browse the web, but beyond that, what is your primary use case for your PC that would allow you to migrate more easily, let's say from Windows 10 to a Linux distro?
Within the past few months, it's been the stream. Prior to that, gaming. and with Steam able to do the cross-platform integration, a lot more games have been pushed to Linux.
Mm-hmm.
So there's really not a true need to stay on Windows anymore for functionality. Everything just kind of things are still a little buggy sometimes, but for the general, Discord works, OBS obviously works.
Right.
I mean,
I'm in a position with what it is that I use on a regular basis can be more flexible between Windows and say Mac OS. I feel like if push really came to shove, and I'm nowhere near this, like the pinch is not nearly painful enough, I could flip to a flavor of Linux that would be suitable, because I'm much like you, right? I have a very paltry needs in terms of desktop software, but on Mac OS, and that's not, I wouldn't say ride or die level, but it would take a lot for Apple to screw up Mac OS like they have iOS to really push me even to Windows 11 in the direction they're going, or even Windows 12 and what that purports to be. So yeah, Toxic. I was kind of curious as to why that is. And you're not the only one to fight that battle against the telemetry and the data that is being captured and recorded, and or the cloud service integration, because that is not going to reverse itself. Right. I'm not saying, because I have no insight, like I don't work for Microsoft, know nothing about their internal practices or plans, but I can't imagine there not being more telemetry coming down the pike, as well as more native cloud service integration specifically on the desktop, to the point where it's been suggested that Windows would ultimately be a cloud-oriented operating system, even running locally.
Yeah, I mean, so that could be a topic for another day, but yeah, you're 100% correct. It's getting to the point where it's software as a service. It's going to not become necessarily a subscription model yet. I could see that coming down the line. You pay $100 a year and you just constantly get the updates through your Windows machine. The inverse of that too is that for the non-power users, I'll call them, at home, you might be able to get a Think client and connect to the cloud as a cloud device, and then your entire computer is at Microsoft's data center. So in theory, home bandwidth won't even really be a requirement. You're going to be at the data center, realistically. So yeah, there's a lot of different possibilities that could go. I personally like having control of my data, so that's my reasoning between not going to 11 and eventually going to.
Yeah, I hear and y'all pardon if I'm like dominating the conversation. Glennon walked away to get his prop.
He's still away. He's still walking.
I'm not even here.
It's frozen.
You can't tell with Glenn. Sometimes you can't tell. You
really can't.
You got to put a mirror underneath his nose just to see if it fogs up. So I guess it's not like I walk down dark alleys with $50 bills, hanging out of my pockets, but I just assume I'm leaking data, and I do everything to mitigate that across the board. Like, whether it's ad blockers, in the browser, at the network level, blocking trackers, anything I can do, not just to save bandwidth, but specifically keeping my data from leaking. I just know that inevitably the accounts that I might have here, there, or wherever, or like I walk to a grocery store and get, tofu or whatever. Well, now I know I'm being tracked. I'm like, oh, that's the bozo who's buying the tofu. I know, and then ads are going to get served against me, and I'm going to get these mailers or whatever it happens to be. I'm leaking data no matter where I go. And I guess I haven't. So I understand why you would say, no, I'm drawing the line at the operating system. But I would, and this is not really playing devil's advocate, I contend that having health insurance, having this insurance, having that account, having this car, having this, that, and the other thing leaks just as much personally identifiable information, or PII, I think is the acronym.
Yeah, correct.
Yep. I feel it leaks, maybe not usability in terms of what, you opened Notepad 3 times, but like, who cares how many times I've opened Notepad? Like, I really don't care about quote unquote leaking or sharing that data, to the point where when they ask, and sometimes I turn it off because I'm not like, I'm going to give them the permission to like read crash logs or data and analytics. I usually will opt out of those for telemetry purposes, but I guess I don't see them as anything more than innocuous, especially, coming from Microsoft or coming from Apple. I don't trust them. Let me reframe that. I trust them equally. I trust Microsoft equally to Google, equally to Apple, equally to, every one of them. Because, and I know people would argue, well, Apple's a privacy company. I'm like, they're doing that as they're saying it. And I'm not arguing what they're doing and how they're doing it, because they certainly have taken the extra step. But they're doing that as not because they care about your privacy. And I, again, know nothing about Apple, but they care that it's a clear differentiator with what they're doing versus what the competition's doing. So it's a feature. It's not core to their ethos. And again, that's my opinion. That is absolutely 100% my opinion. I just don't see it as anything apart from, oh, well, we feel better. I feel better because they care about my privacy. Do they really? Because they don't support somewhat secure messaging. Like, they still force Android users to use MMS when they're interacting with iMessage users, and they could adopt RCS, which some would argue, well, Google's got its fingers in it. Yes, but it is still far more secure and has the potential of being far more secure than pushing people back to a fallback that's legacy that should be destroyed at this point to SMS. Like, it's been proven to be like a horrible way of communicating in this day and age. So Apple, they care, but only so much. So when I say I'm not drawing a parallel between, well, Microsoft's the same as Apple. No. What I said, and if I need to reiterate, I will. I trust them just as much. And this is something that I feel most people don't take a hard enough look at. They just assume, right? Security through obscurity. Or, well, I've got an iPhone, therefore I'm secure. Like, no, well, I've got a Mac, therefore I don't get viruses. That's not how it works. I've got Linux, and therefore I will never get, I'll never get a virus. It's just, no, it's no. So I hold them, I hold them all accountable, as should we all, and hope they, and they consistently patch. They hold each other accountable for, 0 days, etc. It's great. Everybody wins. But in terms of my privacy, I don't know if I'm feeling I would feel hurt or violated with any and me, Toxic, Brad, if I can call you, can I call you by your first name
we
now?
call you Brad.
Yes.
Okay. How, and I'm asking this question, it's a legitimate question, and feel free to punt and we can ask or answer it at a future time. What does it hurt? How does it hurt me to give information? Again, devil's advocate here. How does it hurt me to give Microsoft my usability data if, for argument's sake, that telemetry is being used to improve usability, product, quality of code, whatever it happens to be, the benefit that they're getting, right? And it may very well boil down to they're getting more data on me to be able to sell ads, because Microsoft has made it very clear that they're in that business, right? That's certainly an aspect of it. But again, I ask, how does that hurt me? Why? Why do I say, well, Chris, well, of course you don't want and I'll let you answer the question for whatever it's worth, but I got to finish the thought. I only found out about the Panasonic Stormtrooper shaver because I saw it in an ad. So it was Facebook. Facebook gives me the best ads ever. So how did it hurt me to give Facebook my data to be able to give me a product that I would have wanted? And I'm not saying Microsoft's going to serve up the same way, but this is where my head is like, I don't feel there's a violation. I know there's a EULA, you got to agree to it, but it just doesn't feel like what I'm giving up with Microsoft, Apple, Google, whoever. And we have to value privacy. I'm not pissing on the idea that we should just throw privacy away. We need privacy advocates. Absolutely, 110%. But what is it hurting inherently? What do you believe, Toxic? Because you've taken the stance, and I'm not challenging it at all. This is not a challenge, because you've made that choice, and I respect that choice. I understand why you make that choice, but like, what's the reasoning behind you not wanting to give Microsoft, or let's say ostensibly any other one of the companies, the data that you might be leaking when you're using the product?
Right. Yeah. So my viewpoint isn't necessarily strictly with Windows 11. It's the trend of what's happening later down the line. I can give you this information now. What information are they going to want next? Right. Then Windows 12, 13, whatever they're going to call them. If you think of the Windows XP days, that basically had no telemetry. You had an operating system. You went online. That was it. Then Vista and 7 came out. They had very minimal telemetry, basically none. Windows 10 came out. It was a little incorporated. Cortana was integrated, and there were certain functions of the operating system that required some sort of online activation, check-in, kind of a call home. Windows 11 is becoming more integrated with that. So I don't disagree that trend with the operating system or the software in general, because it's not just Microsoft doing this.
Right. That's
just naturally going to happen over time. I just think that going further beyond Windows 11 or any other company that's doing software as a service, they're gathering more and more data. How am I using my machine? When am I using it? What kind of hardware do I have? I mean, Steam, for example, if I want to provide them my hardware configuration for my desktop, I can go in and say, run this tool, and it'll say, here's the information that's getting uploaded. Here, do you want to send this? And I can click yes or no, and they can take that data and then optimize games or anything like that they'd like to do with. Windows could collect that information. Plus, like you said, could look at your online browsing history. You could look at your hardware trends. If you've updated, your graphics card, does Microsoft need to do better on driver updates or something along those lines that's bundled with the operating system? So there is some good to it, but I want to be, again, I'm not the typical person, but I want to be able to be the person that says, yes, I am allowing you to have that information, or no, I don't. And because that flexibility is getting stripped out of the operating system, that's why I'm not trending forward with 11 or future operating system. It's the choice is basically being removed.
Glendon, how do you feel about this?
I see his point, but
I disagree. I disagree. You do not see his point.
No, I can't.
Sorry, I was trying to make it controversial. Okay. Sorry.
What a Google, he did say but. He did say but.
But I view it more as the ability to progress or improve the OS. In my view, I see what they're asking for. If it's something that and correct me if I'm wrong, but
You're
in
wrong.
11, thank you. Okay.
That was easy. All right.
I do.
All right.
What's next?
But in 11, it's not required, is it? To give that information, because I opt out of everything.
You can opt out of everything, but I still think, and I think Barnacle has done a deeper dive on this. I think there are utilities that will, whether they're scripts or what have you, will remove all telemetry. So I think you can opt out of the surface level stuff, but they're still tracking. Like I said, Barnacle, you want to talk about someone we should probably pull on for this kind of information to talk about it.
True.
Well, I can reach out. I can ask Barnacle if he can talk specifically about the telemetry, because that was his background, right? He worked at Microsoft specifically going through this stuff, and his job was eliminated largely, and he was replaced with what we're talking about, like the using software to basically gather the information and better be able to provide data to be able to better make decisions for the platform. But he's gone off on more than one occasion about specifically the data that Microsoft is collecting by way of Windows. So I think there are certain things you can say no to, but inevitably you can't, I don't think, without a third-party tool, eliminate all of the data that might be getting collected.
Okay.
Your usability.
That's fair. That makes sense. And if that's true, then,
you're going to burn your
that may be something that I need to look into. But as far as gaming goes, and you kind of hit that on, you touched on a little bit, Brad. If it's something that's going to improve my experience, if I can give them my system specs or something like that, I don't care. I can have it. It's not a secret. I'll tell anybody what's in my PC. With that being said, I don't keep or try to. I'm very cognizant of what I share online. But hardware specs doesn't really bother me. Yeah. If it's something that can help the end user, then I'm good with it.
You're frozen, Glendon. You thumbs up.
There you go. Sorry.
There you go.
Back.
Cleared up.
That I blame Windows telemetry for that. It was collecting the data.
That's right.
Yep.
It's phoning it home.
It was
Yep.
dumping the information. But yeah, if it's going to help the end user, I don't mind it personally.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying for like hardware, that kind of thing. It fine. I get it. Like Windows has collected that information for error reporting and stuff for years.
Yep.
It's more the personal data that can be generated, potentially anonymized, that can be shared with Microsoft, or whether it be, to Chris's point, marketing, forced ads in your start menu, that kind of thing. That's the information or the issue that I have moving forward with so much telemetry built in. And with Windows 10, when it was originally came out, it was the uncrackable OS from Microsoft at the time. Of course, people cracked it, right? They were able to activate it and that kind of thing. But to force or to kind of crack Windows 10 when it first came out, they had to remove some of that telemetry, and that broke core functions of Windows 10, specifically the start menu, Cortana, and a few other things. Windows 11, it's even more ingrained with Microsoft. So if you start stripping that out, the operating system basically can't function. And again, to Chris's point, there's third-party replacements that can be reinstalled over top of what should have been factory, as we'll call it. So yeah, I mean, that's just it's just my viewpoint. And touching on with me and work, it's HIPAA, right? Everything's health
Right.
record.
I was going to ask about that.
And there are specific actual flavors, is what I'll call it, of the Windows 10, Windows Server operating systems that have that telemetry removed. Because again, there are requirements on the operating system to not have connections to the cloud when it's not needed. Government systems, healthcare systems, that kind of data should not be shared outside. It's very heavily regulated. So when you have that type of integrated system connectivity or telemetry with Microsoft, they have to make custom unreleased, unofficial operating system flavors to provide those sectors for, so they could continue using Windows, because that's what all the users and the software is based on for a lot of vendors. So it has to be out there, but at the same time, it has to be removed. So they're able to do it, but there's a reason why they're integrating it, and they're passing that on to the average end user.
Brad, if you had to pick a flavor of Linux to move to tomorrow, what would it be?
Ubuntu.
Yeah.
Why?
Okay.
It's so user friendly now. Everything's pretty much point and click. If like years ago, everything was through the terminal. Now, if you want to get an AMD or an NVIDIA graphics card, you swipe it in, you can get drivers working for it very easily. If you want to get Steam, it's pretty much point and click. There's very limited terminal use anymore. It's getting more competitive, and their market share, although it's still very, very small, it is growing.
It is growing.
And
yes.
yeah, it's it's free. So
I'm trying to remember. It's probably been over a decade, easily over a decade, since last I looked at Ubuntu or any Linux distro. I mean, it was fun. It was interesting for a little while as an alternative, but I couldn't find a place for it. I couldn't find a use case for it for me. So it's been eons since I've looked at anything, Ubuntu or otherwise. So I can only imagine the advancements that it has made over the years. So I'd assume it's gotten better. Yeah, I mean it's
gotten way better.
A
That's
whole
exactly
lot better.
what Steam uses on their Steam Deck.
Yes, it is.
Oh,
Ubuntu.
it is
Yeah.
really solid.
It's rock solid, and anything that you really want to do Windows related, you can really do it now through Proton. And
I felt that you could, even years ago, I mean, apart from like individual applications that weren't supported on Linux, I felt like it was there. Like, again, this has been a while, but Ubuntu, let's say, was solid enough to provide an alternative experience specifically for people who mostly browsed the web, right? And maybe some just basic stuff. So I'd imagine it's certainly become a more well-rounded system, and it surprises me that, especially when you're talking about like what they use with the Steam Deck, that Linux hasn't really become that go-to for, let's say, PC gamers. It's interesting to me because the foundation is clearly there. What is it going to take? And this is it's an entirely different question. What is it going to take, you think, for Linux to overtake Windows in terms of becoming the go-to platform for PC gamers? This is a general question. I mean, this is the direction we're going.
I think it's going to take the graphics card manufacturers to jump on board with it and promote it.
Haven't they?
No.
Not really.
Really?
Not really. No.
You think that's money?
There, but it's, yeah.
I'll take it a step further. I'll say that HP, Dell, all those companies need to start making that an option that you can choose as an operating system in order for it to grab attention.
I thought they did. I thought they have, and I just see that's like, but that in many ways is like putting the cart before the horse, because for the people that are inclined, they're going to get it right. It's more, I think, what if I were to logic this out, as Glendon posited, right? It's the graphics cards, drivers, it's the compatibility that would be the big win, and that is not a bad thing, because if it's healthy enough to drive, say, a product like the Steam Deck, it's providing enough competition for Microsoft to keep that in direct competition to the alternative Linux. But is it? I thought it worked well enough. I thought that, weren't we just saying that you point click graphics drivers work? What's missing? What's missing?
The performance difference is there.
Right.
If you have a game in Linux, it's not every title. But if you have a game in Linux and a game in Windows, exact same hardware, just different operating system, you can notice a difference in frames per second, that kind of thing. It's just, you got to think of it more of a community-based development versus OEM/manufacturer.
Right.
Yeah. And a lot of it is because it is open source. It's not standardized, put that in air quotes, like Windows is,
Right.
Windows is Windows. It's what it is.
You've got Linux, like Mint, Ubuntu, right. Red Hat, yada, yada, yada. Yep.
So I think that it's the fact that there's so many different flavors and options of Linux.
Yeah,
that it's not as streamlined on some of those versions as it is on Ubuntu. But it can be. You can make a great user interface, but I think that it boils down to getting the information out there, probably, to more people.
Information being
the ability. I would say that the average user doesn't even know that there's another option other than Mac or Windows.
Well, but this is where a Steam Deck, I feel, could take hold, right? It's a good product for the people.
It's a great product. I love it.
A lot of people just love it, right? That to me brings Linux, quote unquote, to the desktop. It's the product. It's not that people they're not going to say, I need Windows, I need Ubuntu, I need macOS. They don't care, right? They're looking for, let's say, game support or whatever is going to support their particular use case. It's in the product itself that's going to, I feel, make or break its foundation, right? It's a polished product, or at least polished enough to be able to provide an experience by which anybody can buy into it. And again, I'm going to the Steam Deck, and I know there are, I'm sure, countless alternatives. But that, I would feel, should be the thing that would rally, let's say, the greater industry to be able to work towards a focus, instead of saying it's Linux compatible in general. Yes, it's compatible, but optimized specifically for, let's say, again, for argument's sake, as the leading example here, Ubuntu. It's interesting to me because it seems that the foundations are there, and what would be missing is specifically that, the money, right? Because there's no money. I mean, there is money in open source. It is commercially viable, but let's face it, like Ubuntu versus Microsoft, I think they've got radically different approaches to the same problem, the same potential ecosystem or community.
Yeah, and to your point, there's different flavors of Linux. So Pop OS is one of them that's common
I've heard
for
that.
gaming. it's supposed to have a lot of like the default drivers kind of built in so that we could just kind of install game and go. But for the well-rounded, I want to try out Linux kind of thing, Ubuntu is definitely kind of my go-to. There's definitely other ones. I mean, there's whatever your system requirements are. If you've got a 25-year-old computer and you want to boot up Linux on it, there's an operating system that still supports it. I remember there was one years ago, and I don't know if it's still out there or not. It was called Damn Small Linux. The system requirements was like 50 megabytes of RAM or something extremely small, but it was basically
hard drive space or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very it was such bare bones operating system that you could get to it. That still had a GUI, but the fact is that if you had a need and you wanted to run, a basic web server or something, it could do it. So I think that's kind of what bites the development for all Linux distributions in the butt, is that there is too many different directions that they can go, and there's not a primary focus on a single or multiple, let's say 2 or 3 flavors of a single operating system. So you've got all these different variations of support and development, which is good, but it doesn't advance that we'll just say Linux in general. It doesn't advance Linux to become plug and play for the average user.
I know we were not planning on taking that tangent, but
My bad.
Yeah. So hi, I'm back on the stream.
But this is what honestly you want to know. I mean, if you're listening to the whole podcast, right? Like, this is typically what will happen. Like, there will be tangents, and we'll have a general game plan, but you got to kind of go with the flow, and unpack what may be sitting there on the surface. Okay, that was just a curiosity. Glendon,
Yes.
back to you.
Yes.
That's the last time you get up out of your chair to go. Oh, let me.
Yeah. Never again.
What do you have?
This is going to surprise some of you, and probably some of you not, just because of the fact that I love gaming. But I picked up a PlayStation 5.
There it is.
And it's the Slim version. It was just released this week. It's a little smaller than the behemoth of the original PlayStation 5. This particular one came packed with Modern Warfare 3, which is the new game that's out now that most of the world is playing. It's different than the PC, I'll say that, but the lines are blurred, most definitely, whenever it comes to playing console games now compared to PC games. And that's going to be what my subject is going to be whenever we get to that today.
Okay. So wait, you're not upgrading from a previous PS then?
I had a PlayStation 4. Haven't touched it in years. Right. My daughter uses it. The only reason that I purchased it to begin with was because of Sony's first-party titles. Just like Nintendo. They've got their first-party titles. Microsoft, it's not that big of a deal anymore because of Game Pass. They release everything that is a first-party studio on their end on Game Pass day one. So that's on PC, that's on Xbox. So I have access to those. Sony has started to put their first-party titles on PC, but usually a year or more after the release on their proprietary system, the PS5 or the PS4, before you see anything like that. I really wanted to play Spider-Man. That's why I got it.
Wait, that's why you got the PS5 Slim?
Yes.
Okay.
Just the PS5 in general, because I didn't have one before this one. The Slim just happened to be the new one that's out. It's a little bit cheaper. You don't lose any functionality. It still has 2 flavors, with or without a disk drive. So there's a digital version or a physical copy version that you could use. I opted to get the one that still can take discs. That's just because it's my preference, because as long as I can hold on to physical media, I'm going to. That's just me. But yeah, that's my my pickup for the week is the PlayStation 5.
See, I've got a Darth Vader themed PS4. That's the reason I'll keep it. I had and I sold it like an idiot for pennies. The Darth Vader PSP. It was a Battlefront.
I still have that one.
I don't anymore. I sold it stupidly, and I don't know. I thought I could get money from it for it. I'm like, well, I'm not going to use it as electronic. I'll sell it. It was stupid. I should have. I loved the PSP. The PSP was so good.
PSP is great.
Oh God, there was nothing I did not like about the PSP at the time. And that's definitely over a decade ago. Easily over a decade ago.
Yeah.
Is that like the Game Boy?
Not kidding. Quite a Game Boy. No.
I'm just kidding.
Oh,
So,
yeah. Okay. Well, that looks like a good pickup then. Mike, do you have anything this week?
No pickup for me this week. I've been testing the Monolith DAC that I showed off last week to go with these headphones. This is, I guess, my show off. It's turning out to be a great digital audio amplifier. So I'll talk a little bit more about that later.
See,
Pretty much all I have. Lots of work.
My digital amplifier is just the knob. I just turn it up a bit, like the whole. And it amplifies. It gets louder. So
Funny you should mention that. That's part of the digital audio stuff I'll talk about.
Well, there we go.
Knob versus no knob.
I use my fingers. That's digital because these are my digits, and I just.
Yeah, that's your digits.
Knobs and dials.
See what you did there.
This is exactly what I did. I knobbed and dialed it. Dial it in. Dial it
Perfect.
in. Will, do you have anything this week or?
I do. Nothing crazy. I got they're off-brand pair of earbuds. I'm using them as we speak, but they're called, I don't even know how you say the company, Sentry. I got them at like $1 General, $10, and I bought them for work. I thought they were going to be just total junk, and I've used them, and they're not bad, being Bluetooth and everything, and being a throwaway headphone, as I would call them. As they quit charging and they start losing battery life. But I ran these things for about 9 hours straight, and that's when the battery actually lasted, and it matched the package, which usually you can take off 2 to 3 hours. When this says, oh, it's 9 hours battery time, you can figure 5 or 6 maybe. But no, I'm impressed for the $10. I've spent more money on more useless stuff in the past, so I'm impressed. But that's about it. And they got RGB on them if you're into RGB. So
there you go, Chris.
Interesting. I'm a big fan of RGB. Although I don't flip for something simply because it has it. But if it does, I'm like, okay, I'm fine. It works for me. Anything that glows, except for Rudolph's nose. Like I'm not into that. Thank you, Will. Toxic. Did you have any pickups this week?
You know what? So I was way underprepared for all of this. I wasn't planning on it being here, but hey, I bought something today, actually.
Whoa.
I just picked up a Sony Bravia 77-inch OLED TV.
Wow. Gee, you just hang on. Whoa, you just like, you know what?
Time for a new TV.
Yeah, I need a TV in the bathroom. It should be 77 inches.
Yep. Yeah, all my TVs are still 1080p. One of my
except the one behind you.
That's true. That's very
yes.
That one's good old 480i. But the one in my living room, I've expanded kind of the entertainment center, and it looks a little too small. Yeah, I bought it probably 8 years ago. It's one of the first or second gen LED TVs from Samsung. The picture still looks great, but I've been itching for an upgrade for a little while. So went out. The prices have finally come down. Really wanted to stick with OLED and Android TV. So picked it up today at Costco and just put it in the hallway. I'm gonna probably hang it up tomorrow. But
wait.
Yeah.
When you say the hallway, like you're literally you walk into the house,
just slide it right in. Yep.
It's literally right there. Like before you get to like the den, it's like you know what?
Yeah.
You need it now.
Yeah. I had to put the box somewhere, so I just slid it right in the door and. That's where it's at for now.
Hey, if it works, man.
So now the truth comes out. That's why he wasn't going to be on here tonight. He was wanting to play with his television.
Yeah, the TV.
No, I can't hang that thing by myself.
What brand is that one, Brett?
It's a Sony Bravia.
Okay.
It's the model is a A80L. It's their 4K OLED, 120 hertz.
I've got Sony's.
What's that?
Why'd you go with it?
I really wanted OLED. just because of the picture quality. It's 120 hertz. All my other TVs are 60. 4K content, I've been really holding out for 8K, and they're just way too expensive still.
Yeah.
I wanted to go a little bit bigger than the 77 inch, but even then it was like double the price to go up to the 83 inch. And at this point, it's like, exactly. Like, I'll just wait until, I need another TV. But
yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm like, I'll wait until something blows up or is broken. I mean, it's rare. I only upgraded the 720p TV in my bedroom when I had an option to get what's the brand? LG.
What is it, Chris?
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's an LG OLED. It's the only maybe it's the second OLED I have. Can't remember what the other one is. It's older. But I just wait. I'm like, I can see the difference, but like until it like actually blows up, hopefully not like, it blows up, but like when it's done, when it's cooked, that's the only time I'm upgrading. That's it. I'm not, I won't do it otherwise. Because for me, it is generally been a law of diminishing returns. It works and it's there, but beyond that, yeah, there's not much compelling. You could even 8K, even if there was tons of 8K, it took me forever just to get a 4K TV. That LG that I'm talking about, even with 4K content. I mean, now, even that said, like I do have a Blu-ray player. That's the reason I have my PS4 is it's specifically a Blu-ray player. I have played games on it too, but it's a Blu-ray player. Now a lot of the streaming services charge extra for the 4K. I'm like,
yep.
I'm fine with 1080p. I'm not gonna pay an extra $5 a month. I don't see the difference. I see the difference.
Yep.
But when I'm watching something, if it's compelling and I'm immersed, I'm not, complaining about one pixel or another. It's not as sharp. I'm just enjoying it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's.
I wish that I was that way. I wish that I could just sit there and enjoy it. But I'm a display snob.
I wish you were too, Glendon.
I wish I was the same way with software. I wish I'd just like, you know what, it works. I wish, because it would save me so much consternation. I'd be able to use the things that everybody else used, but unfortunately, I can't unsee the problems that I see. So yeah, I feel you there, Glendon. In a parallel track, I feel you.
Was it
iOS.
What's that? Well,
was the deal any better at Costco than like Best Buy?
So yeah, it was a little bit cheaper, but not by much. But the advantage of going to Costco, I originally didn't go buy one. I was going to go look at them to see what deals were out there. But Costco offers a 5-year warranty on them, which is kind of cool. It's included in their price, whereas everything else was just the manufacturer 1 year. So that kind of sold it. They had it, and I was like, holiday season's here, and kind of Chris, to what you were talking about as far as the streaming content, I still don't have any streaming services aside from what's included with Amazon Prime. I watch everything on Plex. And, I'll copy Blu-rays from my PC onto my Plex server. So the bitrate's high. I don't have to deal with the compression that we talked about last week in the podcast. But, I'm kind of with Glendon as well. Like, if I was going to buy this big screen TV, like the LCD, like I don't want LCD. I don't want LED backlit LCDs. I don't want
side lit.
I don't want side lit. Like I was like, I'm just gonna. The prices have finally come down. I've been saving for a little bit. It's like my last TV was purchased about 10 years ago, and the one in my living room is from 2006. It's an old Vizio 1080i. My Chromecast works at 720p on it. It's like I can move a few TVs around, just get rid of one, give it to like my niece or nephew for a kid's room or something, and not e-waste. It still works, but.
Put it in the bathroom.
It was time. It was time for an upgrade. Bathroom. Yeah. Put that in there.
Hallway, bathroom, wherever you can stick a TV.
Mm-hmm.
Wherever it goes.
Yeah.
I've got to take a quick potty break. There's no good time. So banter. And then when I come back, Mike, maybe we'll go with you because I know you may have to drop early.
I've got to go pretty soon. We'll move me to next week on this. It's fine.
Sorry, it wasn't a great beer,
okay.
But it still went through me. So I've got to take care of that.
So, Brad, I've got an X85J that's going to be at Sony as well, and the X line uses the backlit LEDs, and which is fair, but I definitely am turning it on. Always wishing it was an OLED.
Yeah,
Yep.
That's what it comes down.
Dimming
I see it.
zones.
like I
That's
said,
real
man, they had an
is pretty
86
good.
inch there, and it was like not even half the cost. It was way cheaper, but
Right.
then it was an LED LCD combo, and it was 83 inch. I think it was from LG. First off, I don't like LG's proprietary smart TV system. I find it kind of clunky and a little
Oh, right.
sluggish.
My favorite thing about the Sony is the Google TV, like you said. Yeah.
Yeah. Even
That's
my
it.
Hisense TV that I installed in my garage, I got that. It's a 70-inch Hisense that I got from Best Buy a couple of years ago for like $400 delivered.
Mhm.
Ridiculous deal. 4K, like 120 hertz. Again, not a great TV, but it works. But the Android TV part was seller because it's basically a built-in Chromecast. It just works. There's no major software updates. I've always had bad luck with Roku long term. Anything Amazon
Same.
Fire, something, the LG built-in proprietary. I don't know what do they call theirs. It's like
Their remotes
iOS.
are weird too. Yeah.
It works. I don't have enough experience. Maybe about a year playing around with it at my parents. They've got an LG TV. It works. It's just it doesn't feel fluid to me.
Right.
I don't. But anyway, those were kind of my go-tos. That was the biggest one they had. I'm like, well, Mazel, I'm here.
Mazel.
Mazel. So you went there for a $1.50 hot dog, is what you're saying, and you came out with 77-inch TV.
Yeah,
That's fantastic.
and I didn't even get the hot dog. So
You didn't even get.
What?
screwed up
That's-
on that one.
Rip.
Mhm.
Does it have the candy bar remote, the old school,
Yeah.
regular everyday remote? That's what
Oh, so
mine
this
has,
was
too.
the other kicker. So the TV, the standard, I'll call it the standard model that you would get at Best Buy, Amazon, that kind of thing. It's the exact same TV, except for Costco, you get a backlit remote. Whoa. It's like, really? They're going to produce all of these TVs, and then
And
the
that's the
exclusive
difference.
version.
And that's the
Is that-
thing. Every
They can all be backlit. Why are you got to
yeah,
be
that's the thing because they want something over the other one.
so dumb?
They have to have a different feature or a
So
different
dumb.
something, and we end up paying for it on the end. That's
Yeah.
just for a retailer to say that their version has something different.
You can show off to your friends and show that your backlit remote is cooler.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
that's
get on my level, bro. Mine
My-
you can see in the dark.
That's what I'm gonna do when I get that NVIDIA Shield. Yeah,
That's true.
backlit. Yep.
The Samsung TV that's in there, again, it's 10 plus years old. That one's backlit. I got that
That's what's up.
from my old work. Fine. Stacked a bunch of discounts on that one, but picture quality on that old TV, it still looks great. LED TVs in general still look really good.
And Costco, if you're listening,
Yeah, not a sponsor.
got a couple
but
members here. Yeah.
I'm open up. Yeah, give me
Yeah.
a Costco exclusive card. Call it even.
Guys, I'm going to jump out. I got to go to work in a few minutes. Okay.
Yeah, sounds good, Mike.
All right.
Good.
All right. We'll see you on the next time. Yeah.
See it.
See, I came in and I screwed everything up.
No.
That's what happened. Yeah,
No.
because I sat
No.
here and we talked about Linux and everything. Mike could have talked. That's all right.
I would have had to leave regardless, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, he was going to have to bounce either way.
I know you would have, but you would have been able to talk.
No, not necessarily because we had to talk about Chris's shaver for an hour.
Oh man,
that's
sorry.
weird.
Okay, it may not have been a great beer, but it was a big one, I guess. Bigger than I expected, that's for sure. Okay, so where are we? Because we've already covered like more than I thought we would cover
We're here.
at this
Yeah,
point.
I'm over here.
Okay, great. And now that we've got our bearings, we're good there. I think the only other thing that there were two things that I was going to cover. I talked about the shaver. Oh, this may not be. Maybe I'll punt this till next week after I've had more time with it. But finally Samsung pushed the One UI 5.0 update down the pipe, or 6, whatever version they're up to. No, 6. Yeah. It's been updated, and I'm not sure how extensive I could talk about it. So maybe this will be the talking point this week. I'm the only Samsung user here right now, correct? No, I'm not the only Android user because, Brad's on Samsung, Glenn is on iPhone, Will, you're on a foldable Samsung. So, okay, so maybe I will talk about this then. And I'll punt on, I think for next week, maybe I'll talk about the Bamboo Lab A1 Mini, because that was my other recent acquisition. I'm a software enthusiast. And it's one of the reasons why I'm using the Samsung device. I find that it's a best-in-class operating system, and this is the hill I'm going to die on. The thing I was most excited for about what they pushed out with One UI 6.0, which is basically what Samsung calls their platform, or how they take the vanilla version of Android and then build on top of it their own services, their own experiences, etc. I wasn't looking forward to the UI tweaks and the modifications. I will say that it's definitely different in terms of like the UI. The UX hasn't changed at all. There are certain things that are a bit more to my liking, but some things that I feel are not. There's some alignment issues that I've seen that I feel they didn't go far enough on. For example, when I swipe down double to get like the full menu layout, unfortunately, the settings icon is offset a little further in than the time on the other side. So it seems to be incongruent there. Small issue. Another issue, even though there's a device control at the bottom, you should be able to, in the settings, you can turn off, you should be able to toggle to turn off device control, because I never use it. So even with the settings saying device control and media output buttons don't show, there's a bug where it's showing. So there are certain things that are not glaring, not things that are going to keep me from using it, just unfortunately some things that they may have missed that would hopefully be updated or addressed in a future iteration of One UI 6.0. 6.1 coming down the pike in January with the pending release of the Samsung next line of products, specifically the flagship, the Galaxy S24 Ultra, certainly, which is what I'll be leaping to from the S23. So small tweaks with UI. I've actually found that I'm closer to a monochromatic experience with 6.0 than I had before. And so that was nice to have. It was just something that popped out to me. So now I feel a experience that's more to my liking, monochromatic buttons. I can tweak everything that I might need to tweak using the Good Lock software. If you've not heard of Good Lock and you have a Samsung product, you absolutely must have it. It's free. It's made by people who work at Samsung. It's not an official product from Samsung, but it's made by Samsung or people who worked at Samsung. So it basically allows you to tweak damn near every element that you have throughout your Samsung device. I recommend it entirely because it allows me to do things like tweak what shows up in the notifications menu, or a better one-handed operation in the design of that, like tweaking what happens when a screenshot takes place, other usability tweaks, as well as being able to optimize the launcher, the One UI launcher, with the Home Up module. The only thing that I found is that they changed a couple things, so I couldn't get it to look exactly the way that I had the previous version of One UI, but not enough to have me being pushed to anger. The biggest change, and this is again a curiosity, when you upgrade from one OS to another, at least as far as I'll make a parallel here with iOS, the difference has been negligible, and in some cases there have been there's a word for it, reversion, not recursion, not revision, like where you introduce a problem or you introduce a new feature and then there are problems that go all the way back. There's a word for it in programming terms, and not being a programmer, I can't speak directly to it with any degree of intelligence, obviously. But either way, when I get a new OS, I want to feel that it doesn't necessarily just look different. I would want it to be better. But how well does it perform? Does it introduce problems? And I will say this, in using it for the past couple of days or so, it is snappier. And mind you, the S23 has been snappy. Like I had no issue with the snappiness with the S23 up until that point. But having used the product since January for 11 months, you get used to the performance. So you notice the change, whether it gets slower or faster, especially in getting in and out of apps and in general operation. It's more fluid and it's snappier. So that is a huge win in terms of usability, in terms of fluidity, in terms of experience. It adds up. It's faster than it was before. And that, I feel, is the hallmark of a good, solid, amazing, good is not a strong enough word, but good in the sense that it's stable, right? But an amazing upgrade from previous versions, or specifically the previous version, 5.0, going to 6.0. Yeah, I can tell you, noticing small software changes, I can tell you with an amazing, insanely good, solid, like, it works. It works, and it works well, despite some of the issues I have with the changes they made with the UI. The user experience improved. Not going to say dramatically, but if I had to put a number on it, it feels the snappiness, the responsiveness in and out of apps, getting things to launch, getting things to load, moving in and out. I feel, and this is not an exaggeration, I feel it improved 50%.
Wow.
Just, yeah, and that's, I mean, because I've done upgrades. I've gone from the S22 to the S23. I'm like, yeah, it's a little faster. It's a little. I don't know what they did. I do not know. I don't know if it was Android 14 as the underpinnings, the optimizations on top of that. I don't know what it is, but it is definitely markedly more responsive. And remember, I'm in and out. I'm like swipe, and I'm like, like going in and out, swiping down, moving this, moving that. So I'm used to moving faster than the operating system can keep up. I'm used to launching apps, and I'm used to the cadence of having to wait a second. So when I notice it was like half a second, right? I'm like, dude, like this fundamentally feels faster. It's less of a review of what One UI 6.0 is. You can look up the features. It's a question of whether or not it's worth the upgrade, and is it a compelling upgrade? And yeah, to me, as a software enthusiast, it checks all those boxes, with the caveats of you'll get used to it. The UI elements like Notification Center, that how it renders things, and there's some things that I'm like, yeah, that could have been a little cleaner. Animations are great, if not better. They're interruptible, I believe, now at 6.0, as they are with 5.1.1, specifically on the Galaxy Tab. The big win for me is having a phone that feels, it's not faster, maybe, if you're looking at specs, raw specs, the hardware didn't change, but if it feels faster and snappier, that is a huge boon. So it breathes new life into not an old device. And certainly, again, within 2 months or so, we're going to see the S24 Ultra with, assumedly, faster speeds and other optimizations with One UI 6.1 coming in tow with that. A lot of AI stuff, within that experience. But to be able to have kind of a sneak peek of what we could expect, if you have the option to go to One UI 6.0 on your Samsung device, I have very few reservations, apart from, like I said, the caveats with the UI. Not quite sure they stuck the landing with it, but in terms of performance, absolutely. And Brad, you've got the S23 Ultra too, correct?
I do. I was actually checking. I have the S23 and the S22 still. I don't have that update yet.
Really? Okay, I wonder if it's carrier locked then, because you should.
Because, well, one is not currently on a carrier, and the other one's on Google Fi, and that one should be.
Oh, see, I'm unlocked. I'm unlocked, and it was like the other day, because I know that Samsung.
Oh yeah, these are unlocked phones.
Okay,
is that what you meant?
Yeah, I wonder. I wasn't using the beta. I wonder why you didn't get the update yet. But it should. I mean, within the month, certainly. I think Samsung was waiting, because I was watching Twitter feeds, and I'd check religiously every day. Is it here? Is it here? Is it here? And I didn't think it was going to pop up, and then it did. So I ended up getting it. Yeah, and I will say, I will be now. Here's my interest. When you get it, if you notice the difference in what I was talking about, forget the UI for a second, because that's relative, what people like, what they don't like, what they see, what they don't see, specifically in relation to performance. That's where I feel like they've definitely made a dramatic leap. And then going one level deeper, that's specifically with the S23 Ultra. I'll be curious to know your perspective on that. How much of an improvement does One UI 6.0 bring to the S22 Ultra?
Yeah.
And then certainly comparing the two of those. So I am curious to know, and hopefully that the experience I had will transcend, and also, you know, you'll feel that you see the same kind of the snappiness. But remember, I'm like, I have my animations at 0.5, like I don't wait for anybody. Like I'm just,
muscle memory at that point.
I'm like, muscle memory. I may have to like retrain, because the way I set up the new folders, it's a little different than it was before. But I'm very happy with the One UI 6.0 update. Like it gets a thumbs up for me, despite the shortcomings that I've run into for Samsung.
Yeah.
And I contend it's the best in class. And I know iPhone users, they'll be, oh, you're gonna use iPhone. I'm like, oh, I get it. I use an iPhone. It's there. It works. I'm happy with it. But like in terms of software experience, it is just doesn't do it for me. Just does not do it for me. And I tried. Took my shot.
I wonder what's prompted Samsung to bring that out now, so close to the release of the new phone.
They've done that for a number of cycles, if only to breathe new life into the older devices and to get the software out, to show that they believe in software support, getting people used to that experience, so they get the S24 Ultra and like, well, why would I upgrade? You know, I've already got the latest OS. It's like, well, you get new features, new hardware features. That make it even better. So there are a lot of reasons, and I think by and large, just giving extended life has been, I mean, it's been in Apple's world for eons, certainly.
Right.
But you're seeing a few more of the more serious Android OEMs take the same approach, and in giving you longer life with the devices that you currently might be carrying, without forcing you to get the latest hardware to get the latest software. So they've done a really good job with that. Google, is taking a turn with that as well. I think Google's done a fair job with supporting the Pixel. So yeah, that's what I had to say. That was the thing. That's the thing I was going to share this week. But I mean, another thing, I guess I had a lot to share this week. There's not really a discussion point around that. Like, if you have it, it's great. If you don't, yes, it sucks to be you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, right.
I'll let you know when I get the update.
Yeah, you got to let me know. Now, Will, what do you have? Do you have a topic, a conversation that you want to jump into, or anything?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I have been playing with finally. I was using a traditional webcam for much too long, and I started playing with using my smartphone as a webcam, and I've used. I mean, it's way better right off the bat. You can just tell when you turn it on. But I just found out a lot of different things people might not be thinking about when they do it. For example, I mean, I don't know about you. I try not to be a tech hoarder, but how many of you guys might have an old smartphone laying around that you don't use primarily?
Nope.
Yeah, I got one.
Yep.
So originally I took an old Samsung 8 of some style, to be honest with you. I don't even know which one it was, but it was laying on my shelf, and I took it and I started using that to stream my Prusa. And that worked out, and I was like, wow, this is so much better than this webcam I had, which I paid substantial amount, I guess I would say, for webcam on it. And the quality again was it was lacking. Again, lighting. For me, I've always had a struggle, it seems like, with lighting. I started using the camera and different softwares I've used. I was using IV Cam, and just tonight now I'm using Rinkabe Camo, and the auto adjusting that both these softwares have done, as far as lighting goes, have been taking all the brain work out of it. You're moving a spotlight over here and there, and then you're getting blurs and you're getting all sorts of goofy stuff. And it's done it all for me. Sometimes my webcam would overcompensate, and then I would totally lose focus, and then it would find focus again. So it just made for really bad image quality overall. But and then the customization that's already built in with a lot of these softwares. So for example, I want to turn my light on, I can turn my flash on that you would use for taking pictures. I can use that as a primary light, and just by activating it with a toggle on my software, which that's like a huge thing. So if you're not really, you want lighting, but you're not into getting a separate light source, and figuring all that out, and you want to use it, there you go. And the only thing that have been cons, I would say, if you use that light for a heavy amount of time, several hours, I haven't had any personal experience with it, but it can get hot, and granted, your phone will go into a thermal shutoff. But I haven't had any actual physical use where my phone's gone in the thermal shutoff. I've ran my light on mine for almost 8 or 9 hours at one point in time, and it's not drawing any negative sides. A lot of battery use, obviously, but if you got it plugged in, it's whatever, But
what do you? I gotta ask, because obviously you're using Reincubate Camo now. It's a product I've recommended. They don't pay me. It's the best in class cross-platform. Use any smartphone, Android, iOS, connected to Mac or PC. It's great, and it just keeps improving with time. What phone are you using right now for your webcam as you're broadcasting into StreamYard here?
I'm still using the Samsung Fold, Z Fold 4, and that's my primary daily driver phone, and that's the one I'm using to stream on today. So, and I'm getting pretty good quality, I'd say, with it. Everything can always be tweaked, but that's the one I'm currently using. So, but a couple other things I've really liked using the mounting options. Trying to mount the webcam versus this, I could put it in anything that holds a smartphone. There's so many options out there. Right now, I got one attached to the back of my wall behind my monitor. So if I tap the monitor, hit the desk, your picture isn't going all over, so you don't get blur. And the camera's not always shaking. So that was something cool that I found. I always had traditional webcams, and they always seem to have the goofiest mounting ways.
That's the thing. Put the mount to the side for a second. But I was using webcams too, just like you. And when I realized that you could connect a smartphone again, and I looked at all the options as well, and the least junky, if you will, and that's not even putting it in the light that it deserves to be in, but the most elegant, let me frame it that way, the most elegant product out there, software, was Reincubate Camo, like immediately, like no questions asked. And I've been using it, daily. I have my Pixel 8 Pro pointed down at my 3D printer here on the desk, and then I stream that into StreamYard on either MakerDeck and or onto the Twitch stream at live.perillo.com. People do not realize just how much of a leap it is. It's like, I feel this is the corollary, right? Going from a non-smartphone to a smartphone is making the same leap as going from a webcam to a smartphone as a
exactly
webcam. It is night and day, because the optics in the average, even the garbage smartphones, right, are still going to have, for the most part, and I haven't done any tests, still going to have better output. Even if you got like a cheap, like a mid-range, right? Like a pixel, like the cheapest pixel you get is going to produce a webcam image that you could use for, web conferencing, streaming, whatever it happens to be. And this is something that I just feel, if you, as Will, you pointed out, like, do you have an extra, smartphone lying around? Use it as a webcam, especially if you use your webcam or need to use your webcam at any point, because the webcam itself, and I've seen them, not all of them, but a bulk of them are just garbage. Like the color is never right. The focus is always off. Like it's clunky, as you pointed out. And
Yep.
you get a nice desktop, like a tripod. You mount it to the back of something else. You put it somewhere, and you're going to have a higher quality image that's going to impress people on the other end. They'll ask you, are you using a DSLR? Like, what are you using right now? Now, I'm not using a smartphone with this camera. This happens to be a dedicated camera that I'm using specifically in broadcasting into this instance. But there are big reasons you'd want to move to using a smartphone or using an old smartphone specifically as a webcam. The difference is staggering.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I even found out that the built-in microphone that you would use, like, say, for your speakerphone versus the microphone on the webcams you buy, I don't care how old the smartphone is. It receives so much better than the dozens of webcams I've gone through. In just a way that, if you're doing something quick, you want something simple, you're just doing a video conference with somebody, you don't need a lot. You put that up there, and I guarantee you, in my experience, it's been better quality than the guy using his built-in laptop webcam, whatever his, Logitech, whatever brand he's running, she's running, whatever it might be. I've had that question before. What are you running? And I'm just using a smartphone, and that brings up the whole topic. Well, how did you do that? I feel like it's not something people are totally aware that it's actually super simple to do it, and anybody can do it if they have a smartphone. It's night and day. It's easier. It's simpler. I feel like there's even less setup, really.
I didn't want to jump in. I don't know if Toxic or Glendon had anything that you wanted to.
I was waiting for some thoughts.
No, I didn't know if you were going to say something, but no, I agree with you, because I can never get the type of image that I want out of a webcam. The software is always lacking, regardless of what sensor they say that they're using, whether it's a mirrorless or what. And some of the webcams, the higher end ones that you pay premium price for, it's never what you can achieve from your cell phone or DSLR, and those two are close. They're close, a lot closer than people would realize, how close that you can get image quality on a modern smartphone as opposed to a DSLR now, especially with the zooming options, where you actually have physical zooms now in some of these new cameras that are not just digital, and the light sensors. And I've learned a lot since I started taking, pictures and doing some photography, about the ISO and the shutter speeds and different things like that. But the phone takes the guesswork out of it for you. It's use one of these third-party options for a software, connect it to your PC, and you're done. It's just almost a plug-and-play experience at this point.
Right. And that's what I found, and that's I think what really did it for me is I had an old smartphone that was probably worth maybe $50, and I had a webcam that was worth, I paid $200 for, and I compared the two side by side, and that old smartphone was excelling in video quality, and I just that's at that point I said, nah, I'm done, no more. I'm not doing it. Why at that point? And so I started running my daily driver phone, my Galaxy, the Z Fold 4 there. And I mean, that's about the best quality I have ever had since I've done anything with video, which I'm incredibly impressed with. I guess I was just oblivious to how simple it really was. I've heard of people doing it. Didn't really know much about it. Thought, if you connect it with Wi-Fi or cable, what's your fail points? How hard is it on the battery? Come to find out, all these worries they really weren't a problem. I mean, it's a pretty widely accepted thing that people do with them now. So,
and beyond that, I believe the current beta version of Android on the Pixel allows you to connect by way of USB to a PC or a Mac and then have it show up as a webcam. So you don't need third-party software, or you won't need third-party software with Android devices. And again, I don't know if that's an Android thing, and I'm pretty sure it is, versus a Samsung thing,
Nope.
or sorry, a Google Pixel thing. I'll see if I can pull up the setting here. But it's possible that they're going to make it such that you can turn any Android device using that Android version and higher as a webcam to a Mac or a PC. When I tried it, it was the feature was there, but it was really glitchy. Like the image would kind of flash, and people were like, "Why is your camera doing this?" Camo doesn't do that. Reincubate Camo doesn't do that. I'm sure other third-party apps don't. But in a pinch, certainly if the feature gets further refined, it could be worth investigating. But right now, at this stage, your best option for Android is Reincubate Camo, Mac or PC. Best option for iOS isn't necessarily camo. It would be more using the continuity camera, but that's only in conjunction with Mac OS. If you had an iPhone and a PC, you'd use camo. If you have Android and PC, camo. So it just kind of depends on which direction you're going to go. But that's something that I should throw out there as potential future compatibility with Android, at least. And that I know of, it's going to be an Android feature that's not locked just into the Pixel.
Yeah, I was surprised.
Good.
Well, go ahead.
No,
I was going to say I was surprised with how many softwares there was available. And that was what the hardest thing was, to figure out which was the one for me. Some better than the other. But
well, we told you. We said, do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Reincubate camo. Like, we jumped you right to the fire. Like, but we were right.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I mean, I was having some crash fall problems before that, and I mean, we've been on stream now for almost an hour, 40 minutes, and I've had zero issues. Knock on wood, but it speaks for itself. So
I loaded it. This is the screen on the Samsung, right? And of course, you'll see this on every version of Android. So where you can choose your how you connect by way of USB. So you've got like MIDI, transferring images, charging phone, USB tethering. So this is where, with newer versions of Android 14 on up, I'd assume you're going to see the option to mount the camera as a webcam without any third-party software. Or sorry, mount the smartphone as a webcam without any third-party software. But that's not in this version of Android, and I only have it running on a beta version of Android on the Google Pixel right now. But so I assume that's going to translate across the board. But like I said, in the beta, and it may just be glitching. It may be that's the way it's going. Hopefully they flesh it out, though, so that it is stable, because it'll make it a lot easier for people. I've got an Android phone. I'll just use that as a webcam.
Right. Yeah. And the other thing I had to do, and I don't know if it's for all softwares, but I had to turn on developers mode, which would allow me to access the USB debugging.
Yeah.
Which
you do need debugging. You do need debugging at this point, at least for Android.
Yep. And it sounds scary if you're just a basic user, but if you Google it, there's 1.5 million different videos. It's super simple, so it's definitely not a downfall, really. So
is that what you're using, Toxic? Are you on a smartphone?
No, so this is the Foscam Elgato Facecam. That's what it is. It's the 1080p model. They have a 4K version. It's supposed to be a DSLR replacement. It's obviously not as expensive as a DSLR, but it's more expensive than a standard webcam per se. I get occasional, like you'll notice, like it tries to focus on the TV when it's too bright.
Well, I was going to say your exposure. If you could lock your exposure, that's the one thing that gets thrown off. Or what you do is just dim the TV a bit, and then it wouldn't be as dramatic when it's light dark.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's what I'm using. And to that point, I was going to mention about to Will was the other thing too is the megapixels that the cameras will use, right? Because some of them will advertise it. They'll say, it's a 1080p 3 megapixel or 5 megapixel lens. But if you're using a built-in laptop one, it still might be 2 megapixel, 1 megapixel. If it's a really crappy laptop, it might be 0.6, but it'll say 1080p because that's what it's processing that image at. So it comes down to not only that lens that it's using or that the sensor that's built into it, but even like a $250 phone, right? You're getting 10 megapixels now. Again, the lens is plastic. It's not going to be the greatest image, but this is going back to what we were talking about, I think 2 podcasts ago with Netflix and everything about the bit rate. So you can have a really garbage sensor at, let's say, 1 megapixel. It can record 1080p, but it's not going to be as clear as a 20 megapixel 1080p image because your bit rate or the amount of data that you're able to intake it's much higher. So I agree. I've thought about using an old phone for webcam, but haven't had the need just yet.
Well, yeah, I'm definitely not slagging your webcam at all. I was just kind of curious. Yeah, if it works, it works. It's just more like, as opposed to a potato camera, that would be the issue. Glendon, what are you on?
This is a DSLR. It's the Sony A6400.
Full frame?
No, this is not a full frame.
I'm
full frame, but
I'm
it
on
is mirrorless. I do take, pictures with it. It's not just here for the stream. It is kind of dual use, which is a pain whenever I have to mount it from one tripod and put it on another, or use it in handheld mode. Try to get it back in frame exactly like it was previously, but it's not optimal, but I do prefer the picture quality that I get out of this over the webcam that I was using previously.
Yeah, I think there's still a lot of good webcams out there. I think I would be considered probably a pretty basic user when it comes to video, to be honest. And I think that was what threw me off. Like you were saying, you can maybe get a 2 megapixel camera, and they're not going to outright say that, but they're going to be like, hey, it's 1080p. So somebody like me, okay, great, that'll work. And then you look at prices and different stuff, and it's translating it, I think, what's been my problem, to really know what I'm getting. So I'm more advocating for the basic user who's like, I don't know a lot, but I just want a decent quality camera. Where do I go from here? And maybe you don't want to spend a lot of money. Maybe your budget's bigger. Maybe you don't have a budget, and that allows, again, chances are you probably have a smartphone. So,
all right, that's a good topic of conversation. Who's next? Who's not?
I can go.
Okay, all right, Glendon, what do you got for us this week?
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and.
What is your discussion point this week, Glendon? There's a better intro.
My discussion point for this week is going to be console versus PC. And that's because, like I said previously in the podcasts, that I just picked up the Sony PlayStation 5 Slim. I did not have one of the current generation consoles. So I couldn't really compare it to the PC side without, relying on somebody else's information. So I thought, man, I really, really want to play this new Spider-Man game. And I'm not going to lie, that's why I bought it. I wanted to play Spider-Man and the new God of War that you can only play on a PlayStation right now. So I took the plunge, and I have to tell you that I'm really shocked how close the two are now between PC gaming and console gaming.
In what way?
Fidelity, number one. Resolution is on par. There's caveats, and I'll go over that. But for the most part, it's hard to discern one from the other, especially if you're playing on a good source that takes advantage of the capabilities of the console. Like Brad said that he just got a new television, and his has OLED display, high refresh rate, 120 hertz, the same as mine. And I'm using HDMI 2.1, which is the new standard for HDMI that's out now, because it gives you variable refresh rate, it gives you HDR, and it gives you the high refresh rate. All three. Previously, before HDMI 2.1 on 2.0 and previous iterations, you couldn't achieve all of that. And even on DisplayPort, you forego one or the other. Usually it's the resolution. DisplayPort's really good at 1440p gaming on a PC with HDR and high refresh rate. But until the current generation graphics cards that have HDMI 2.1 on them, you couldn't do that over HDMI. It just wasn't possible. You didn't have the bandwidth. So the consoles are able to do that with dynamic resolution scaling. And what that means is they're able to keep a high constant frame rate, or the look, let's say, that you perceive that it stays at that high constant frame rate. But what it's actually doing is dynamically, through different scenes or portions of the game or whatever you're experiencing, it will drop the resolution down to, say, a 1440p instead of a 4K resolution. But it's so seamless that I can't really perceive much difference. I'm going to have to do an A/B comparison, because at this point, I really opened up Pandora's box. I'm going to hook my PC up to my television, and I'm going to go from input to input and see if I can see a difference, on the same game, one console and one PC. I wish I could do a side-by-side comparison, but I can't. But I'm going to try it and see if I can see any difference natively or something that's jarring. But I've got to say, so far, playing this Spider-Man 2 on the PS5, it's been an awesome experience. I have no qualms about it. The visuals are great. The sound is great. I can't tell any drop in frame rate. It goes from cinematic cutscenes directly into gameplay. It's all done in engine now. It's not like, a computer generated image, CGI, or, in previous consoles, Brad or Will the Gamer, you guys know, like whenever you would go to cutscenes in consoles before, you could tell the difference, right? The quality is pre-rendered CGI in a cutscene as opposed to what you get in gameplay. You would always have that difference that you would see, and you don't experience that anymore. And it's the same thing on the PC, but it's nice to see that for $500, half the cost of a high-end graphics card, you can actually get the kind of gaming experience you have on a PC now for the masses on a console.
Yeah, I was.
Do you have the new consoles, the Xbox or the PlayStation 5, or are you all just on PCs?
PC now.
PC. I got consoles, but nothing with PlayStation at the moment.
I have Switch, Xbox One, and a PS4, but I feel like I would play more games if I had a partner that played games,
right.
that kind of thing, because it's more social in that sense. And I did play on the PS4 for a little while with my brothers when the Battlefront was released a few years ago, when the whole Star Wars thing was kicking up again, and they were playing on the PS4. So that's why I wanted to get a PS4. So we gamed there, and that was kind of fun. It was fun to play with my brothers that way. Did that for a brief while, but then I kind of fell away from it, when life got busy.
Yeah.
But I'm probably more a console gamer. If I were to be a gamer, more so a console gamer than I feel I'd be a PC gamer. Despite the power, despite the graphics, despite this, that, and the other thing, I feel like when I'm here at my desk, I'm not playing a lot. But if I'm zoned out in front of a TV, I'm much more inclined to just relax, zone out, pick up a controller. But even then, I don't do it. Not on a regular basis.
Chris also only buys consoles when there's a Tetris game that comes out.
Or if it's Star Wars related. That's typically when I do.
What are you going to do whenever a Star Wars Tetris game comes out?
Pre-order.
Oh my God.
Breathe, man, breathe.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Why has that not even been a thing yet?
How is it not? You get lightsabers and, little, I don't know what you do with it.
Whenever you get a Tetris, you would hear the Rebel.
We sure it's not a thing?
I'd totally do it. Well, they're pinball Star Wars games.
Right.
That's been out for a while. But Tetris is it's the killer app. It's on every platform too. But like I said, I'm more inclined to go console because it's cleaner. I guess I had fewer problems with the console, and like anytime I get futz with PC games, like I have to get the graphics right, got to get this right, got to get that right. Windows does this, Windows does that, and like, But on a console, click, boom, done. Like, okay, so there we go. I'm good. Like it's everything's done.
Plug and play.
I'm more
on the console. Even on the console now, you get the option to choose between balanced, quality, or performance. You get 3 different tiers at least to where you can choose to have performance is all about the frames per second. It's going to drop the resolution down for you and not even try to do it at 4K at a constant 60 or 120. Balanced is exactly what it says. It's somewhere in between. And then fidelity mode is just all about the eye candy. So like I said, the lines are really blurred now between the two. And they're more closer to a PC than ever before. Because I mean, they're using an APU that's basically close to one of the newer generation Radeon cards that are in computers now that are available. It's not on par with what I have, like the 7900 XTX, and it's still an APU, which is a processor and a graphics card, doing one, all the heavy lifting. So you're not going to be able to break that up like you do on a PC, where you have a processor and then the GPU acts as a co-processor, taking the lift off of it.
But you're not
doing the rendering.
You're not thinking. Hey, I'm confident how you're going to answer this question. That you're going to switch from a PC to a PS4. That's not.
No.
So under what circumstance then, if someone was wrestling, and this is potentially the more I guess targeted question, wrestling between, because they didn't have an inclination one way or another. Do I just start gaming on the PC, or do I start gaming on a PS5 Slim? What's the answer?
Well, to me, it's all about what you already have technology-wise. Do you have a display that can take advantage of anything over 120 frames per second? If so, then you could, and to be honest, if anybody that has one that already can achieve that, probably already going to be gaming on a PC. For the average person, you've got an LCD monitor that's probably been laying around and used on a family PC for a while. I would say, man, I'm still going to say PC for me.
Okay. I mean, you would
just
you would
because
say
you can do incremental updates and it's not all, in one purchase, if that makes sense. I know I didn't word that great.
I think what you're saying is, I mean, the PC will improve potentially over time with software updates. Well, so would the PS5, assumedly.
Right.
But your range, I feel like the answer to me would be like, what games do you want to play? Or what range did you want to play? Because like PC games, like, oh my God, like so many free games are released and so many this, that, and the other thing versus, I'm more casual, just maybe one or two titles a year. So I think it's nuanced. I don't think there's a blanket way to answer the question.
If you just want the plug and play and try to get the most that you can out of your television and the bang for your buck, probably going the console route, especially now. Like I said, I just went over a list of reasons why you should even choose one over the other. To me, in all honesty, now it's either you're an enthusiast or you're not anymore.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's what it boils down to. So you either want it to look as good as it possibly can,
which is you,
which is me, or you can have most people be completely content with the console experience. And to be fair, it's a great experience now. I'm not saying that it's not.
And I hear you, and I'm going to unravel that thread. You're going where I want you to go. At what point do you believe, and this is for everybody, these questions are for everybody. I'm not just targeting Glendon here because he's just bringing up the topic of discussion. At what point do we reach that delta, right, where it works well enough and most of the world, the community at large, would want to go that direction, or is it there now? Have we reached that delta and console gaming becomes that much more palatable over, say, the PC? And despite strengths and weaknesses, right? Where or at what point do you believe we cross that line? Like we go from it's a debate versus, now the console, PS or Xbox, I don't want to go into the weeds there. Like it's viable and it works, quote unquote, well enough. And it seems to me that's kind of the crux of your approach on this and how you framed it. So are we either at that delta or approaching or there, right? Like where do you think, or what do you think it's going to take?
Personally, I think we're there already, because like I keep saying, the lines are blurred between one and the other. There's not much that you can't do on one that you can on the other. You can even use a mouse and keyboard on the consoles as an input. So if you're say you're on an older PC and you don't have the budget to upgrade all of your components or to purchase a new PC or completely build a new one, but you could go out and spend $500 on a new console and still play it the way that you've been playing it for X amount of years, it's a viable option.
Yeah, it's something to add on that too, actually. You guys remember the time, not long ago, but remember when you would build a computer, they'd have a $250, $300, what they would call a console killer? It was so you could get it into gaming cheaper than what a console was. I'm finding now myself, the console killers are a dying thing. Like, for what you can spend on a console versus what you could build for that $500, let's say, or $450, or whatever it might be, what you're getting in the console is so much better than the quality you might be able to crank out of, if you had to start from the ground up building a PC and you wanted to get into the world of gamings, for example.
Yep.
It's a cheap, actually turnkey way to do it now. From my experience, I'm seeing. So,
if you
and a lot of things are cross-platform.
Yeah, and that's what I was getting at too, because like I said, especially with Microsoft, everything's cross-platform between PC and their ecosystem now on Xbox. So there's another reason why you would be able to consider the console over the PC is the game library. And now I just purchased this PS5 to play some exclusive titles, but within another year to a year and a half, those games are going to be on the PC. I'm just impatient, and I wanted to play the games now.
In my eye, that's the biggest thing keeping consoles alive still, is the exclusives.
Yeah.
Because I think so. Because if, aside from hardware limitations and graphics cards, how you could configure your PC, consoles themselves, they have to have exclusives, because that's what sells the PS5. That's still what sells the Xbox. That's still what sells the Switch. You're not going to see a Nintendo game, like a Mario Nintendo game, released for the PC. Probably ever.
Never.
No. Because that's what sells. They're consoles. When the consoles come out, they're actually a loss leader for like Sony and Microsoft, because usually the product itself is more expensive than what they're selling at, because they make their money on the games. So up front, the consoles are best bang for buck. Again, you got the exclusives. They work well. Again, the games look great. As the longevity of that console is out, you're still stuck with the same hardware. There's companies like Rockstar that are able to squeeze out some really good games out of some aging hardware. I mean, GTA 5, for example, came out on the Xbox 360, and then they re-released it, a quote-unquote better version, which had a few more features. Still the same game, but everything was still 1080p, all that kind of stuff on the Xbox One. Then they also came out with it on the PC. PC, you could still play the same game, but up to 4K or beyond. And the console kind of locks you in at the hardware level. So yeah, you could still get newer games, and people could create and utilize that hardware better as the console's out. But that's why you have generations of consoles, because that hardware, eventually you hit that hardware limitation, and then you have to upgrade that hardware set. So I think that consoles are really just still here because of exclusives at the end of the day.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
But I mean, I hear you, and I think it's a very qualified opinion. I don't disagree. But at the same time, I guess I view and I'm going to abstract this because it's not an exact parallel, but I go back to the plug and play. I go back to I feel consoles are closer to an appliance, and PCs are closer to a DIY car, if you will. Like that's not an exact. You have to pardon if the example doesn't stand, but it used to be like the iPhone, it just worked, right? Or the Mac, it just worked. Versus the PC, which was just a quagmire of problems, and to a certain degree, it's kind of the same these days. But the whole plug and play nature of the console for someone like me, who's not a gamer, who's not an advanced user by any stretch, in that particular realm, it's still more compelling despite the exclusives. And I don't disagree. I'm confident those exclusives drive the titles to the point where Glendon got the PS5 Slim specifically to play the Spider-Man game. Or Nintendo being, I feel Nintendo is almost like an exception to the rule, but it's the IP that ultimately drives those purchases. Yep. But I think independent of the IP, the utility of it being something that is very user friendly, and I feel that that's something that is not talked about frequently enough in relation to the console versus PC war. It's the user friendliness of a console, a far more complete, cohesive experience. You may not get anything and everything like you might on the PC, but you also don't get the cruft, and you also don't get the problems that are inherent with the PC ecosystem. That's a certain type of user. And I feel for that reason and that reason alone, I feel consoles have a longer shelf life, potential for longevity, et cetera, for their user-friendliness over their power. I feel user-friendliness trumps power and configurability every day of the week, especially as far as the average person is concerned. Kid, adult, like these are less extreme cases, and that's more mainstream. So user-friendliness, I feel, is the thing that's keeping, that's my opinion, that's the thing that's keeping consoles going. It's far closer to an appliance versus a pain in the ass.
For sure.
Another thing about consoles now too, though, is we can't forget that we're getting mid-generation refreshes on these consoles. You're not just getting a PlayStation 5 and an Xbox Series X.
Right.
PS4 had the PlayStation 4, PS4 Slim, and a PS4 Pro, which the Pro gave you more graphical horsepower and more computation.
Yep.
You're going to see, and Sony's already announced that they're going to have a PS5 Pro, before you ever see a 6. And Microsoft is going to do the same thing. So they're still trying to play to the enthusiasts as well, and on a budget, give you that experience that you would get on a PC for a lesser amount of money.
Yeah, that's a good point. And even go back to the Xbox 360 days, there was always the Xbox 360 arcade, there was the standard console, and then there was the Elite.
Yep.
Realistically, the only thing that was different was the Elite was black.
It had an HDMI cable too.
It had HDMI.
That's true.
The Elite was the first one that had the HDMI because you only had component.
Yep. Because you had component not on it.
I still have not just an Xbox 360, but specifically an Elite in box Xbox 360. Never got open.
Wow.
Not that it's worth anything, I'm sure, but yeah, it's FYI. Anyway, sorry, Brad, not to interrupt.
No. I mean, so yeah, you had kind of the Elite, and then they trailed that HDMI back to the original, or I should say the standard console, and then eventually it also got trickled down to the arcade.
Right.
And the arcade for the Xbox 360 was just seen as, my Xbox red ringed, I need a new Xbox, I'm going to go get the cheap one, slide my hard drive into it, I have the exact same Xbox.
Yep.
Then they, started doing little differences like the chrome disc tray versus the all white, and then they came out with the slim, and everything was supposed to fix in the red ring, and those were minor upgrades, right? HDMI should have been default. They did have a converter, I believe, that took the component to the HDMI out.
Yep.
But realistically, they should have just stuck with the HDMI as an option, just built in. But it was a selling point because they could make more on that console. The PS3 had that as well. They had the backwards compatible one with PS2. And then there was the standard console, and then they made the Slim and all that stuff. So there's always been variations, but it's interesting that, to your point, Glendon, how the current generations, instead of just saying, well, we're going to come out with a new console in 8 years, they're going to just say, well, we can milk this one for 10 years now.
Yep.
And we'll just make a newer version of the PS5 or the Xbox One.
Yeah, still use that same architecture.
Exactly.
That they're using now, but just give you more horsepower under the hood, if you want to say it that way in layman's terms.
Yeah. So it's interesting. And kind of touching on what Chris was talking about as far as like plug and play. I mean, the Nintendo 64, there's no operating system. Put the cartridge in, you turn it on, it loads the game. That is the operating system. Atari, all the cartridge-based old systems, not the Switch, did that. Now we've got software updates as well for our operating systems on our systems because they're multimedia devices, right? They're Blu-ray players, they're Netflix streaming devices, or video games are an obvious thing. But then you've got digital content and many other things you could do with them. So in their own way, they are PCs.
They really are.
Yeah.
Another selling point for the PS5 for me was because of your debate that we were talking about last week or 2 weeks ago about the compression that you get through streaming services and the 4K and the Ultra HD content that I'm paying for on Netflix.
Yep.
I'm going to start purchasing some Ultra HD discs, Blu-rays, and see if I can, physically see a difference between quality of the streaming versus, being played from an Ultra HD Blu-ray.
Yeah. Yeah. For Ultra HD, if you get a uncompressed Blu-ray movie, again, I've got a Blu-ray disc drive, so I can still copy them and put them on my Plex server.
Mm-hmm.
If you copy a UHD disc, that movie might be 100, 150, 200 gigs for an hour and a half, 2 hour movie. You stream that on Netflix, not many people have the bandwidth capacity to stream that without buffering, let alone is the data center have an upload speed enough where a lot of people can stream 150 gigs within an hour or two. So you're going to see the bitrate quality drop. So it would be interesting to hear what your side-by-side comparison is. I don't think you're going to see a lot in a lot of the colors. It's going to be the darker scenes that you're going to see those artifacts.
And I call the artifacts or dithering or whatever you want to call it whenever you see the pixelization and the black scenes.
I think it needs to be artifacts.
That's what I'm looking for because you can see it in streams, obviously. And I have gigabyte internet where I get, one down.
Right.
So I'm not bottlenecked. I'm, one of the, I will say not one of the fewer, but most people don't pay for that as a service. But I want to see the difference. And I already picked up a Blu-ray. I've just not watched it yet in Ultra HD. I picked up Rogue One to watch that in Ultra HD just to compare to what I can get on Disney Plus.
Yeah. So
I wish I could see the difference. No, please, Toxic.
Yeah, so I just quickly Googled it from Netflix's website. The standard definition TV shows, whatever it may be, is up to 1 gig of data per hour of streaming. High definition, which is 1080p, up to 3 gigs, and Ultra HD 4K is up to 7 gigs. So, and even then, you're buying the Blu-ray disc, that's still compressed from the original format. I mean, you could be talking 1,000 gigs for a true definition cinema playback.
Right.
When they compress it, it's the form factor. It's got to go down to, let's say, 200 gigs. And then if they're compressing that even more, you might be getting 3 to 5 gigs realistically. I mean, I don't believe the 7 gig, but there might be a few films on Netflix's hosting that hit that 7 gig mark, but again, like you just keep getting compression on compression on compression, and it's not just video; it's audio as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, yep, it'll be interesting to hear.
Oh, all right. Well, that I don't know if anybody else had anything to add to that, but who hasn't? Brad, did you have a discussion point? I think is that it then after.
Yeah, I've got a discussion point, but yeah, I think Will, Glennon went, then you.
Okay.
Yes, you still.
Well, I pretty much. I mean, I dominated tonight, so it's like, well, we had the offshoot, which is great. I mean, honestly, that's I prefer the offshoots almost more so than the planned discussions because those are the ones that you kind of get into.
Yeah, let me step away. I gotta grab something off the shelf. So go ahead.
Okay, yeah, no worries. Yeah, no worries at all. Yeah, if anything, the topics of discussion that we bring up are just more like starting points to, like something that's relevant, something that's fresh, something that, I had, this is kind of a side quest here, but Jedi showed me something that she wrote the other day, and I'm reading it, I'm like, this is, it's good, but I'm like, this is, she was writing from an experience she had not yet had. So she was mirroring, let's say, lyrics from a song, right? But there's no meaning with those words. And they were just written down. I'm like, okay, Jedi, this is like, what music are you listening to? Because this is well beyond you. This is like talking about like boyfriend, girlfriend, like all sorts of weird stuff. I'm like, weird. She's 9 years old. I mean, this is just way over her head that she's writing about. And I stopped her. I said, write from the heart. Like, write what you know. Like, start there and write what you feel. Think about what's in your heart and write that down, because that's a connection to what you're sharing, you're expressing. So she thought about it, and then she wrote something about like Christmas or something like that. But like, just telling her, like, follow what's in your heart. Don't just write something for the sake of, or to do something for the sake of doing it. Like, you're just emulating. But if you write what's in your heart, you're going to be connected to that piece ultimately. So I kind of want to take the same approach with the podcast, where like we're speaking from the heart, we're speaking from experience rather than we're just regurgitating a topic because, so like Will gets figures out, oh, I'm going to use a camera as a webcam, or Glendon, you get a PS5, or so it's something, or I get, an electric razor. Like it's more organic. That conversation is just more flowing and we're connected to it versus just talking for the sake of talking, right? There's meaning behind it. There's heart behind it. Okay, Toxic, you're back. Now that I've framed that up, hopefully you're not talking out of your ass with whatever topic you're bringing up this week, because otherwise everything I would have said just fell flat.
Still talking out of the mouth, so we're doing.
Well, there we go. Awesome.
Yeah. I kind of wanted to take a branch off of what I discussed last week, which was the LAN party, setting up a LAN party, the requirements of doing that. But I kind of wanted to go into a side segue of how to get a cheap older PC for maybe somebody that's in the family that's just getting into gaming, might be younger, playing some old games that really wouldn't be graphically intense, but you don't really have the budget to necessarily build a computer, but you've got maybe an old TV or computer screen, something that you could cobble together to do some basic gaming. Wanted to touch on a few hardware components that, if there are options out there. Obviously, used PCs are one. People have used Raspberry Pis, especially the brand new one that came out. I believe it's the Raspberry Pi 5. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's just the standard model, is the 5. But that one, like the performance on that is increased. And again, with retro gaming, whether it be emulators, Chris, I know you've got a MAME cabinet for Windows XP machine. So there's options with some old computers or old hardware that you can kind of just enjoy the classics. That's the way I'll put it. But the biggest one that I have always had time playing around with and I've learned a lot with are actually repurposed thin clients. So you'll typically see these things in offices, large offices. Mm-hmm. These are typically hooked up to just a keyboard. Even libraries, public libraries, typically hook up to just a screen, keyboard, mouse, maybe speakers. But these are pretty much dummy terminals. There's decent hardware in here for what they do, but the the grand scheme of things is that these typically just connect to a remote server, and that server is hosting your actual environment that you're seeing on the screen, clicking around in, and potentially listening to audio on. So these specifically, I've actually got a few of these. The reason why I bring these up is because of the value. These are typically seen as e-waste within a few years of a business, just because the software might not be supported any longer. They might not be getting updates, that kind of thing. But again, you being an enthusiast of tech, I like to see what these could still be used for. So this one specifically is a Wyse, W-Y-S-E, 5010 thin client, made from Dell. And what's in here is a dual-core AMD processor with a AMD GPU. It's got gigabit networking. I believe it's a dual-core with 4 threads. It's got laptop memory into it, so it comes with 4 gigs. You can upgrade it to 8. There's no PCI lane, so you can't just throw like a 2080 into this thing. But the wireless chipset is wireless N, and the at least in this specific model, the hard drive is SATA. So you can go out to Micro Center, Walmart, Amazon, whatever it may be, buy a 2.5-inch SSD. You actually crack it open because it's not inside of that SSD, unless you get a very top of the line one with a lot of memory in it. It doesn't actually use that full form factor. It's only about half the size. You can pull that chip right out of the plastic case, and it will actually slide into where the existing 8 gig module that's in here. These get shipped with Windows. It's actually a flavor of, let me see if it's on here. Yeah, it's Windows Embedded Standard. There's a license key on here, but they do run Windows. Again, it's a very lightweight version of it, just so that we could do remote desktop, that kind of thing. But I have actually loaded these with Windows 7. I've found the Wi-Fi drivers online. You could just look at the chipset that's on the actual, the Wi-Fi chip. You figure out who the manufacturer is. There's drivers out there for it. And I was able to play anything from emulators to Unreal Tournament to some more modern titles, but very low settings. Mm-hmm. Again, these things are not gaming machines. Right? These are made for remote desktops and sitting in a corner, staying quiet. The CPU on these things only draws 15 watts. So it's like a tiny little netbook. But these can be a dime a dozen on eBay. Sometimes you can find them in lots where you can find a box full of them. Sometimes you can buy them just one at a time for $15-$20, depending on the version you got. Newer versions, they might be a little bit more, but they might have a full i5 built into them. So there are plenty of options out there for retro gaming, and it's not necessarily gaming as well. You could do virtualization with this. Turn it into a home server, that kind of thing. You can use, I don't know if I would do a Plex server, but you could definitely do like some smart home features if you wanted to do that. If you wanted to learn virtualization on how the enterprise servers wanted to do that, you could run VMware ESXi on here. There's quite a few different things that you can play around with them. But again, I just wanted to throw out there that you don't have to spend a lot of money for especially retro gaming. And if you want to hook this up to a TV, it does have a display port, HDMI out, DVI. You just hook this up and you're off to the races. Classic gaming console right here for the go. So,
yeah, I've seen those and used those, and that's one thing that I've never thought about using it for was retro emulation.
Yeah, because again, it's not high-end hardware. It's not going to run Crysis. It's not going to run Rust. It's not going to run Call of Duty. But if you're doing a LAN party and everybody's got a different set of budgets, everybody's got a different kind of computer. You know, they might have a $6,000 desktop, and then somebody might have a $300 laptop from Walmart that they just got last week because it's their first PC. Nobody's going to be able to run the same game. However, if you pick older titles, you'll all be able to play it and still have a good time. So something along these lines, again, Unreal Tournament 2004, easy 60 FPS, 60 plus FPS all day long on this thing. Quake 3, all the old classic stuff. They're still great to play with tons of friends. Again, emulation, those kinds of things. They work great. But have you guys thought about any other hardware options that you have used for retro gaming? Because again, the Raspberry Pis are now out there as well.
Yeah, I'm kind of stuck. I've had this MAME cabinet, as you referenced, for over a decade, and the CRT is kind of shot. Like, I think a capacitor needs to be replaced, but finding someone who can actually do it has been impossible, seemingly. And I've tried every option at my disposal. Someone likely needs to gut it and replace this, that, and the other thing, not just the monitor going to an LCD, but also like just the guts, the components. And I don't know, because the frame is fine. Like, the actual chassis itself, the body itself is fine. It's the components inside. So and again, I'm not even sure how to spec that out. Like, who would that be? How would that work? How much would it be? Would it be worth that cost versus, hauling it off and just getting a new one entirely? So I don't, that's where I sit. And so I've just kind of been waiting for that opportunity. I'm not even sure how would I write that? How would I pitch that? Like, hey, this is what I'm looking to do. Who can do it and for how much? Like, it's never going to happen if it's going to happen at my hand. It's just, I'm not hardware inclined. It never will be. So I've sat, on the edge of everything you've been talking about, because I've been locked in on a not as easily upgraded, arcade machine, and have just been biding time, waiting for the right thing to come along. Maybe I do need to write a bid. Maybe I need to say, here's what it is I need to do. Who do I hire, and how much might it cost? Maybe I do need to do that. I don't think it's not like a typical home improvement project. Like, I need you to replace a fan. I need you to install a light,
right.
One thing or another. It's got to be something in between. So, that's where I've been for a number of years, waiting to see if I can get the CRT repaired and or changing out entirely, but needing to find someone.
Yeah, myself, I have jumped into the retro scene pretty deep. I have what's called a Mister. Have you heard about that, Brad?
Yeah, we've talked about it on stream before.
Yeah, I've got a Mister, which is a FPGA, which is a field programmable gate array. It's a system on a chip, but what it does is it mimics the hardware instead of emulating the software. So it's running the same processes that an NES would, or a PlayStation, or an N64, or any classic console that you can think of. The processor on there is mimicking at the hardware level to the exact frequencies, megahertz, everything that you're going to get out of the processors that were on those classic consoles. The good thing about those is you experience the game like it was meant to be played, because you're essentially playing it on original hardware. So if you experienced slowdown in Super Mario Brothers, you're going to experience that same slowdown at the same place in Super Mario Brothers on that Mister, which is really cool, because if you use software emulation, which I also have a MAME cabinet downstairs in my garage that me and my dad built, it's using a Raspberry Pi 4B with 8 gigs of RAM on it. And it plays anything from, ColecoVision all the way up to some PlayStation 2 titles, fairly easy. It's not going to be perfect, but I didn't buy it to play PlayStation 2 games on it. I wanted it for, a classic arcade console or a MAME machine. So I've experienced that through Raspberry Pi. I've experienced classic gaming through Mister, which is FPGA. And then I also have some analog consoles which Analog is the name of the company, not analog as in the type of technology. Which those are all FPGAs as well. But the cool thing about those is they take the physical cartridges. I have what's called a Analog Mega SG, which is a FPGA Sega Genesis. And then I have the Mega NT, which is the NES version. And then I have a Super NT, which is the Super Nintendo version. And those are all FPGAs, and they take the cartridges. So to me, if I had my druthers, I would rather do the Mr. route. I'm probably not going to keep all of these other ones around after I bought the Mr. and set that up. The good thing about the FPGAs through Analog is it's a plug and play option. With the Mr., you have to build it out, just like a PC. So you get into that whole enthusiast type end of the spectrum with the Mr. But yeah, I love retro gaming. I'm never going to stop because you can't beat the experience of what got you in there, in the first place. So yeah, I can appreciate the sentiment and the idea, because honestly, that's one avenue I'd never thought about taking until you brought it forward.
These, I wouldn't say they got popular because not many people were still buying them, but when Raspberry Pis during COVID with chip shortage and everything going on, these were a secret kind of pickup because you can do everything on a Raspberry Pi that you can do on this, right? It's still a computer, but it's x86. It's not ARM. You can do Docker containers if you want to do that, virtualizing, quite a few things. If you get an older one, and this one's a bit newer, it's still old by today's standards, but there are older ones out there, you can run Windows 98 natively on it. So then you're going back to DOS games. And DOS, well, even retro gaming on PCs, if you don't want quote unquote emulation, when it's running natively on the thin client hardware and it's Windows 98 and you've got audio and video drivers built in with potential networking, again, it's native. Like you're just throwing everything on there and just playing it like you would have 30 plus years ago. Yeah. It's just cheap, right? Because a lot of companies are seeing these things as e-waste. And a lot of companies that you're buying these from on eBay, they are getting them as e-waste, and they're listing them on eBay just thinking, if there's some legacy company that needs one or two of these just to keep running and they just need the replacement, here it is, plug it in, get it connected to your server, and you're good to go. Whereas, again, the hobbyist is looking at it as, what else can I do with this thing? And retro gaming and virtualization, that kind of thing, it's not something that's typically done with these, but everything works. Again, the drivers are natively out there. You can't go to Dell's website and say, for Windows 7, give me the driver for this thin client. That's not how it works. But you can just look at the sticker on the chip and say, well, it's this manufacturer and here's the model it says. Oh, you just Google that and there's the driver. It's on their website. And it's usually up to date. So it's a viable option. And again, that's kind of where my head was at, because I wanted some Raspberry Pis, couldn't get them, and this has been an easy kind of substitute for them. Again, $15-$20, you've got one. They're cheaper.
Wow, that's that's a hidden gem.
Yeah,
they're cheap,
dude.
So
anyway. I'm not saying, I'm not gonna go out and pick up 2 or 3 of them or anything and have them lying around the house, but still, that is a compelling use case. You really don't. I don't know if I've ever heard that suggestion before. As much as I don't follow that particular segment of these types of discussions, gaming, retros, that kind of thing. Apart from when I need to get something for me, but that may very well sell a few people on the idea.
Yeah, even during COVID. Again, I bought a few of these. They were just sitting around, so I actually hooked up about 6 of them. Because again, the CPU under full load is only using about 15 watts. So they're very energy efficient as well. So if you do want a home server, it works great. You can do 1 or 2 virtualized machines. There we go. Again, these aren't power horses, but they do work. But I was actually doing some folding at home for COVID and cancer research on these. Again, were they fast? No. Was it doing some work? Yeah. Did it cost me much? No, because it's, again, 15 watts. Of course, of the day, it's pennies. So, yeah, they're a unique little hidden gem out there on eBay for some retro gaming and computing.
Wild. I think that's it for tonight. Am I wrong? Did I miss something or anybody?
That
okay.
should be it.
It's great. We came in right around 2 hours, so that's what we remember. Isn't that what we were originally shooting for? And then we kept shooting 3 and 4. Yeah. So we did well, folks. We did very, very well. And again, I appreciate everybody's patience and time, especially as we've had to move nights for one reason or another. So it's good to have that kind of flexibility. But thank you everybody for joining, for listening, for tuning in, certainly for commenting and passing along, whatever you do on a regular basis. We are typically hanging out, and although not all the time, everybody being there over on Twitch, on my Twitch stream, live.perillo.com. We are using StreamYard to broadcast. We're using StreamYard to record this particular podcast as well. Thanks again, Will, Brad, Glendon. Appreciate everything you threw in, everything you added to the mix, because otherwise it would have just been me babbling, and I could have done it. It just would not have been nearly as interesting. It's kind of like, it would have been only 25% as good if it was me. So having you here was an amazing compliment. I'm going to wrap things up. I assume that's everything that everybody else wanted to say. If not, you can interrupt me. I love you, everybody else. I appreciate you. And at this point, I'm going to leave you to your own devices. We'll see you next week or in between, with the segments being uploaded individually to this YouTube channel. Thanks again for liking and subscribing, and of course, turning on notifications. At this point, however, I'm going to leave you to your own devices. And may the force be with you always.